Hi, Madison. You didn't hear the last part, but we are ready for you and your report when you're ready.
Awesome, thank you. You guys now. Am I able to share my screen with everyone?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. I'll just pull up my PowerPoint here quickly. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Give me a second here. I'm in training today, so I just jumped on the computer quickly, and I don't have the best reception, so my computer's just a little slow. So if you guys could just give me a minute to get the computer in order, I'll get started here soon. All right. Can everyone see the PowerPoint and can hear me okay?
Yes, on both.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. My name's Madison Hughes. I work for Foresight Consultants as a fuel management specialist. I work closely with communities such as Clearwater to write community wildfire resiliency plans, conduct fuel treatments, and prescribe burning. So today I'm going to be talking about the District of Clearwater Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan, also known as the CWRP. So a bit about some project background. This project started in middle of 2024, where Foresight Consultants was retained to complete the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan for the District of Clearwater. This project was funded through the Union of BC Municipalities, so UBCM's Community Resiliency Investment Program, which is a program that gives access to municipalities, regional districts, and Indigenous bands to fire smart funding to write these CWRPs and then be able to access additional funding to conduct fire smart and wildfire risk reduction actions within their community. The project area focused on the wildland-urban interface, or the WUI. The WUI, or wildland-urban interface, is a set standard data set given by the BC provincial government, which is defined as the area that is in an area that is 1 kilometer away with a structural density of 6 structures per kilometer squared. So this area is where wildfire risk reduction efforts should be focused on throughout the entire province. So on the map you see on the screen, the red outline is the wildland urban interface. This is something given to us from the BC Wildfire Service and is something we cannot change, but is where fire smart and wildfire risk reduction efforts should be focused. So this is for the area within the District of Clearwater municipal boundary. The plan was started in middle of 2024 and received official approval from the BC Wildfire Service and the Union of BC Municipality in January of 2026. So what even is a CWRP, or a Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan? The CWRP is a comprehensive community-based plan based on the 7 fire smart disciplines. The disciplines address wildfire preparedness from different angles of community and emergency planning. So the 7 fire smart disciplines are displayed here on the screen, starting with education, legislation and planning, development considerations, interagency cooperation, cross-training, emergency planning, and vegetation management. Within each fire smart discipline, there is different actions or recommendations that can be taken by different levels of people. So this includes the public, neighborhoods, associations, the District of Clearwater themselves, or other agencies like the BC Wildfire Service. The objectives of the CWRP includes identifying local wildfire hazards and risks to values, and provide strategies to increase the community's capacity and understanding of wildfire risk, foster greater collaboration across administrative boundaries, become more responsive to the needs of different types of communities throughout BC or Clearwater in terms of their size, capacity, and threats they face, and developing achievable and accountable action items for effectively reducing wildfire threat and risk. So the CWRP will allow Clearwater to access more wildfire risk reduction funding through the CRI Community Resiliency Investment Program put on by UBCM. So a bit of background of how this plan was actually developed. So phase 1, project kickoff. So this is gathering and analysis of background information, including plans and bylaws from Clearwater, plans, provincial plans, federal plans that relate to forestry and wildfire risk reduction, spatial of where values at risk are located, as well as background research into wildfire history within the valley, along with interviews with Clearwater District staff, specifically the Fire Smart Coordinator, Chance Breckenridge, and the Fire Chief. We also completed public engagement. This included a community survey to get the public's input into perceived wildfire risk, threat, and current level of Fire Smart knowledge within the community. And then this plays into the CWRP and how we prioritize recommendations. There was also just a recent premiere of the movie BC is Burning. This happened after the CWRP was complete, but was a great public engagement meeting that discussed wildfire risk reduction and Fire Smart within the community. We also completed field assessments of local wildfire hazard and risk, both on Crown land and district land owned by Clearwater, adjacent to private properties and critical infrastructure within the wildland-urban interface. Part of the rules of completing this plan is we're not allowed to step onto or analyze private land, which is why we only looked at Crown land and district-owned land. These assessments can also only be done within the wildland-urban interface, as this is where wildfire risk needs to be assessed first. And then phase 4 is the development of the actual CWRP, which includes risk assessments and an action plan with recommendations for future of wildfire risk and Fire Smart activities. Following the completion of this plan, the plan was reviewed by the Fire Smart Coordinator for Clearwater, the BC Wildfire Service, and the Union of BC Municipalities prior to its full approval in January of 2026. So the biggest outcome from this plan is the action plan table and the recommendations. So the CWRP action plan provides recommendations and funding opportunities over the next 5+ years, or the duration of the plan, to increase overall wildfire resiliency within the District of Clearwater. The action plan is broken out based on the 7 Fire Smart disciplines. So on the screen here, you can see a chunk of the action plan table, first for the education section, and then below it is the different objectives and actions that are recommended but not required to be completed, along with who should lead it, priority, rough time frame, resources, metrics for success, and any notes and rationale. Again, this table is recommended but not 100% required, and it can be up to the discretion of the District of Clearwater and the Fire Smart Coordinator how to actually prioritize and spend the funding and the money for wildfire risk reduction and Fire Smart. Another big action that stems from the CWRP is where to put potential fuel management treatments. So wildfire threat assessments, which I will explain in the forthcoming slides, inform proposed fuel treatment units within the wildland urban interface areas on Crown land throughout the District of Clearwater. To note, the Ministry of Forests, specifically the Thompson Rivers Natural Resource District, are also developing landscape-level wildfire risk reduction plans for Crown land, which will become the primary source of fuel treatments. And this program is moving towards communities doing fuel treatments on their land. So for Clearwater, the Ministry of Forests would be primary to do fuel treatments on Crown land, and Clearwater would do their treatments on municipal land. However, this is not fully developed yet, but you can see on the slide an example. Both of these photos were taken during field work within the District of Clearwater. On the left, you have an untreated stand that potentially has high wildfire threat, where on the right, you have a treated stand with low ladder fuels, lower surface fuels, and creates a defensible space for wildfire operations to occur. Wildfire threat is mapped through the Provincial Strategic Threat Assessment. This is a layer developed by the BC Wildfire Service. It outlines where potential high threat or low threat areas for wildfire can occur on the landscape, but it has not been updated since 2021, and this is a GIS exercise that is not yet field verified. This threat layer indicates where potential fire threat on the landscape exists, from low to extreme, and where potential fuel management treatments may be warranted. On the map on the screen, you can see a large amount of area is blacked out. This is because, due to liability and privacy reasons, the BC government does not map threat on private property. So from the Crown land and municipal land, we have to infer what the potential threat may be across the whole landscape. Which brings us to the wildfire threat assessments. In total, there were 30 wildfire threat assessments completed within the WUI on Crown land or municipal land within the District of Clearwater. The wildfire threat assessments looks at surface fuels, ladder fuels, and aerial Crown fuels, which then field verify the PSTA, or Provincial Strategic Threat Assessment, demonstrated in this map. This is how we go out, field verify where the threat actually exists within Clearwater, and then using these threat assessments, we can then develop the proposed fuel treatment units of where efforts need to be focused to reduce physical wildfire threat on the landscape. Along with the action item table, which breaks down the 7 Fire Smart disciplines of major items to do, and the proposed fuel treatment units, there were also 3 major risks identified for the District of Clearwater. The first was Clearwater was ranked #1 for top Canadian small population centers most at risk for high burn probabilities given historical conditions. There's more information on this first major risk outlined within the CWRP. Unfortunately, since we created the CWRP, that study was removed, but this is still in the CWRP with information. The second major risk was there are no current wildfire development permit areas developed for wildfire hazard within the District of Clearwater, and no requirements for implementation of Fire Smart principles or wildfire resiliency during development. So this applies more to future development of land and current development of private properties. And third, there is no recommended fuel hazard standards as stated in the repealed Volunteer Fire Department bylaw number 125, and they were not carried forth in the Volunteer Fire Department Regulations bylaw number 233. This is something I found while reviewing the bylaws for the District of Clearwater, both the original bylaw and the new Volunteer Fire Department Regulation bylaw. The previous bylaw had stated that there were fuel hazard standards that private properties must follow, but those standards were not actually outlined. So creating standards such as these may give or guidelines may give the District of Clearwater power to start to regulate wildfire risk and fire smart on private property. So next steps, now that the CWRP has been approved by UBCM, the BC Wildfire Service, the CWRP will act as a roadmap towards wildfire resiliency within the District of Clearwater over the next 5+ years, which is the general lifespan of the plan. The CWRP is the first step towards accessing an array of fire smart and other wildfire risk reduction funding. I will say this funding is actively changes, and the items that are funded do change year after year. The biggest one was the fuel treatment funding was just removed, so that's something to note. The District of Clearwater will be able to apply for annual funding through the CRI program to complete the action items and recommendations listed in the CWRP action plan. And that is all I have for the CWRP. I can now take any questions. And I'll stop sharing my screen as well.
Any questions?
Thanks very much. I really liked this whole report, and I thought it outlined all the action items really, really clearly. I do just want to loop back to what you had said, is that the data report has now been removed. Can you just give a little bit more background on that and that decision and what we might see for some of the amendments in the report?
Yes, if you give me a second, I'm just pulling up the CWRPs just so I can actually speak to it fully. All right, so you're referring to the wildfire study mentioned, right?
That's right.
Okay, yeah, so the wildfire study was something I originally didn't hear about, but the Fire Smart coordinator passed along to me while I was finishing up. This study outlined Canadian small population centers, so these are areas with less than 30,000 people. And it was most at risk for high burn probabilities given historic conditions. This is based on burn probabilities within 10 kilometers of the population center to simulate wildfire behavior according to historic climate and burn patterns. I didn't reach out to the individuals that completed this study. I had just looked at the study at the time, which was more of a news document where they had outlined their methodologies and their results. It was the BC Wildfire Service that, when they were doing a review of the plan, told me that the link I had to the study in the CWRP was no longer active, and I can no longer find that study online. So I'm not sure of the decision why that study was taken down or removed, but at the time I determined that it was still vital to keep that information within the CWRP, because it does outline that even though the District of Clearwater has not been burned by a major wildfire in several years, it still outlines there is that big potential in the future and something to watch out for.
And apologies, Madison, but I did just find it on the AI6 website, so it is still active, the report.
Okay, it is active? Okay.
And this is what I would say. This was not a study that we created, and this is not a study that the BC Wildfire Service created. This is a private company that put it out there, and it would be something that we would have to have purchased, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
Mayor Blackwell, through the chair, that is correct.
So supplemental to that, and the reason I bring it up is because I think even when we first heard about this report, it is an AI company. It doesn't necessarily have a lot of resources attached to it. And I think it's something to be wary of, but I don't think that should mitigate the value in the rest of the report. But I do have concerns about the company itself and how we use that information to attract attention to the cause. I just don't know. I'm just not sure that that's a validating.
And if I may, I 100% agree with you that this was the company was using that. But I'm going to go to Mr. Prime, or Ken's going to go to Mr. Prime, because I don't think this report was used in any way in the development of this report. And the data that was used even in the AI.
We're speaking the same language. It's just the fact that it's still referenced in the report, and I'm not sure if that's the best course of action given this company and it's verifiable.
That's correct. And I don't have the information in front of me, and sorry, Councillor Sim through the chair. However, at the time, I did do a deep dive when this report came out, looking into some of their methodologies, and it was all quite sound, and it was all based on simulation data provided by the federal government that they fed into their proprietary AI systems, but the actual data source was legitimate. So there was no concern that they were kind of making this up as they went. How it ties into the CWRP in terms of acknowledging that it exists, I think is still probably likely a fair point. However, I think there's the data behind it was solid. Yes, the AI company was trying to sell their products, however.
Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, thank you for all the work on this. I think there's a lot of fabulous information and direction in this report. I did, just for the record, on the wildfire stuff and fuel mitigation, I did speak and text multiple times with the MLA last night, and seeing the fire chief and the fire support coordinator are both here. I did give him information based on some of our online reports, specifically related to the initial attack crew and the two or three of the projects, the Fire Smart project as a whole. He is looking for specific information on funding and things like that, and I did let him know that to the best of my knowledge, most of our funding expires on June 30th this year. He was taking that today to the budget process for the Ministry of Forests. But yeah, this is a big challenge, and this is sort of leading to my question here. Do we have any indications as to whether or not the provincial government is going to top these things up? Is it something that they intend to do, or are there other funds that we can go into for fuel mitigation and things like that you're aware of, either one of you?
Yeah, I discussed with the chief forester of the Ministry of Forests very quickly, and the fact that fuel management was cut from the current CRI budget is pretty stark, and realization that there is only so much money, and originally the CRI program was handing out money just based on if you applied, where they're moving to a ranked system right now where top priority areas throughout the entire province will get the funding. Whether or not that program specifically brings back fuel management is up in the air, and no one working within that program currently even knows themselves. However, there are other funding opportunities. The biggest one is specifically the Forest Enhancement Society, BC, FESBC. They give a yearly application to be able to apply for fuel management treatments. There is, like every program, there is requirements, but I believe as long as it's on Crown land, there's potential for fuel treatments there. There is also quite a few one-off programs that will fund fuel management. One I specifically saw, it's currently not active, but Wawa Nisa Insurance actually put out a pot of money for municipalities to fund fuel treatments. The Forest Enhancement Society is the largest pot and does it yearly, but there are other smaller programs to be able to fund these fuel treatments. And then as well, I encourage you to talk to the Thompson Rivers Natural Resource District as they are conducting their wildfire risk reduction work. They have a large area to review to conduct fuel treatments. but they will take prioritized areas within the CWRP to do fuel treatments on. And that was actually discussed during the CWRP process. And there was one area in Clearwater that we had originally outlined, and then the Wildfire Risk Reduction Coordinator with the Ministry of Forest has already taken that on, and it's moving into fuel treatment.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Sim.
Maybe this is a question for staff, but I think that, and Mayor Blackwell, you would remember this. Didn't we have a representative come from the Forest Enhancement Society come?
Yes, we have multiple times, and they were TNRD not that long ago, and they were at UBCM presenting as well.
But they haven't been to Clearwater for a while. Is that worthwhile, or is it maybe?
Well, I think Mr.
Yeah.
Breckenridge and the possibility of round tables and things like that coming up, there's an opportunity
Okay,
there.
so as part of the action items in the report. then.
Yeah, March 16th, we're going to have a roundtable. We're hosting our own Clearwater and Area Roundtable, and Forest Enhancements of BC was invited. And they did get back to me, and they're going to have a representative here for that.
Right. Is there any value in having a presentation from them? I mean, it was really informative, and I think, or I'm not sure, Mayor Blackwell, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, if to council, depending on when the schedule is for them to come here, mind you, they could do remotely as well. I think it's a good program for the community to understand, especially with the challenge we face. Yes.
I think that their before and after is just another educational way. Like, we hear a lot about fire smarting, and we see a lot of the depictions that are coming out. But I think that their long-standing knowledge about our area, they seem to be really grounded in our forest ecosystem and our differences, as opposed to the broad-based just fire smarting. It was really interesting. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for your report. I found it very, very interesting, well detailed and well thought out. And I think it covered most of the concerns that I had about fire resiliency in this area. So thank you for that. There is a recommendation that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council adopt the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan as presented at the March 3rd, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting.
So moved.
And moved by Mayor Blackwell, seconded by Councillor Frizzle, and all those in favor? And it passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Awesome.
now we
Thank
move
you,
on
guys.
to...
Oh, I was just going to say thank you, guys. I have to return to my training, so thank you for listening. And please, if you have any other questions for me specifically, Chance can provide my email.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And
Bye.
moving on to item 8.2, financial plan. Staff report?
Good afternoon. I have a short presentation to share with the council the results of our financial plan review. Let me just... All right. Good afternoon, Council. Today we have a short presentation for the financial plan review. The purpose of this presentation and the report was to present the results of staff's review of the 2026 operational and project plans as directed by Council, to seek Council's direction on incorporating these required adjustments into the financial plan, and finally to summarize the public engagement process and provide Council with the feedback received from the community. This is the Council direction that we received on February the 10th. I'll just quickly read it. That the Committee of the Whole directs staff to revise the draft 2026 to 2030 five-year financial plan to reduce planned expenditures by $200,000 and to reallocate the resulting savings as follows: $100,000 to the roads capital reserve and $100,000 to the Financial Stability Reserve, with the reductions to be identified from across operating and project budgets. And that staff report back to council with proposed reductions and associated impacts for council's consideration. So the staff did have a review of the operating plans, and during that review, we came up with the following savings. So on the slide, on the left-hand slide, is the operating savings from operating costs, and then on the left-hand side is a special project savings. So I would just quickly go through those savings. So first of all, we reviewed revenue. We found an extra almost $20,000 in additional revenue, and that comes from the court services. They're here a few extra months, so we're going to add those back. And some cost recoveries based on actual or historic costs. So that's more realistic to what we've been experiencing in the historically and currently in 2025. Contract services. The big item there is that we found we had duplicated contract services by about $83,000. So we found that it was entered on the project side and it was entered in the operational side. So we found that error. So that's good. We also found that we had not entered GIS services from TNRD, so we added that back. And we also are going to do a property appraisal, and so I've added that back. And then we found some extra contract services in parks. We're going to not do some of those things, and some contract services in animal control. That's the contract service part. We have a variety of mat leaves during the year. It's difficult to bring all the mat leaves on and then train them all at the same time. So what we're doing is, with one of the positions, we're delaying it a few months, and we have some savings from that so that we can train as we go along. And then some other savings that we found, and they're just small ones from travel, training, etc. So we came up with operating savings of about $131,000. And we're recommending that we allocate the $130,000 to the Financial Stability Reserve. Moving to the right side of the slide is the special projects. So we had a standing $50,000 for engineering, came from the Community Enhancement Fund. And we've also got projects, and we're going to go through those, in water and sewer that uses the same type of engineering. So we've just decided that perhaps we don't need that project to go ahead for additional engineering. The website renewal project, what staff was recommending is that we cancel that project until after we've done the IT master plan. It kind of makes more sense. And then the mural project, at our last council meeting on February the 10th, we reduced that from $35,000 to $10,000, and it was suggested that we take it from the art reserve that was accumulating. So those red circles total $60,000, and the reason that the engineering project isn't really a savings, that just the enhancement, it just stays in the community enhancement reserve. So it just stays there for other projects. So when we're reviewing reports, there's lots of other changes that come up. And so if you would turn to page 156 and 157 in your program, in your package. And you may have, there's a lot of numbers. So I was just going to go through both these line by line to some degree. So on your right of this 156, so we're looking at special project summary. Oh wait. On the right hand side is what was presented to council on February the 10th, the purple portion. And on the left section is what we're proposing was a change. And the first three on this page above the black line is the what we just talked about. And now we go, the next one I want to talk about is the OCP update. So in the OCP, the change there that was made is, if you look on February the 10th, we said that it was going to be 35,000 from the housing, local government housing initiative fund. Well, all of that OCP money has been spent. The 148,000 that we had from that grant is basically spent in 2025. So to complete the OCP project, we need about 25,000. It's estimating 25,000, and we're recommending that it comes from general surplus. The canoe regatta, we've left it where it was for 2026, but we are looking for council to confirm, is that what council would like? Would they like the canoe regatta to continue in 2026 and for it to come out of surplus? On the zoning bylaw, normally the zoning bylaw occurs right after the OCP is complete. If the OCP reaches adoption at a reasonable time frame, it is possible for the zoning bylaw to be completed in 2026. At this time, we've moved it from 26 to 27. So the keeping, if the OCP is adopted in a timely fashion and the bylaw and council wishes for the zoning bylaw to follow the OCP quickly, what that does, there's some time savings with regards to education of the new council, et cetera, in 2027. I'm just putting that out there. The Connecting Clearwater Wayfinding and Signage project, that project, we've delayed it by 1 year to move it from 26 to start in 27, and that's related to the current mat leave that we have occurring. Now you see Next Gen 911. That is a new project that we had received grant funds a couple of years ago. We were going to apply to the TNRD project, and now I think that has not occurred. And so we are going to have a project here with the Next Gen 911 so that we can use those funds. And the next two, they equal $50,000, and those $50,000 is, we're recommending that it is funded by the Growing Community Fund, and it kind of replaces that $50,000 we talked about earlier for engineering. So we just moved it down. So those are the changes that we've made in the special projects. Any questions on those?
Councilor Bratton.
Next Gen 911. I don't know what that is. Forgetting.
I'm going to ask the fire chief to respond
Sure.
to that one.
Yes, so the Next Gen 911 is a system of the 911 service that is being slowly implemented by the federal government. Last I heard was 2027, end of 2027 was the end date. What it is it's an enhanced 911 service. So the caller, when they call 911, they're geolocated more quickly by their cell phone. They can text, they can send pictures, videos, all that type of stuff. So our dispatchers need to upgrade all their systems, and then with that, the fire departments can upgrade their systems with having computers in their trucks.
Gotcha.
Catch all the data that's out there. Plus, the other thing we're doing in that grant is to sort of mirror what the TNRD did with one of their grants was to do a address program where people that don't have an address that are visible will supply one for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Welcome.
Further questions? Councillor Sim.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Frizzle.
Councillor Frizzle.
On the signage project, aren't those signs already ordered?
I believe you're referring to, we had an earlier wayfinding project. That one's complete. That was completed in 2025. This
Right.
is, we've applied for another grant, which was originally scheduled for 26 and 27, and now it's going to be scheduled for 27 and 28.
Okay, that's where my misunderstanding was. We applied for funding, not signs.
But on that same vein, I believe that council had been asked to top up some funds from our own coffers. Is that correct, or it was all grant?
It is, let me just, yeah, some of it will be reserves.
Okay, so it'll just stay in the reserves because the project's not going forward. I think that, you know, the mayor's motion at the last meeting was really important, is the fact that the resiliency fund be created. But maybe you want to maybe just speak to people about that as to why it's being developed, because there's a good rationale for it, and I think it's really important for fiscal futures.
Yeah, I'll speak to it. Multiple factors. First, and probably most importantly, is we don't have an absolute definition from or direction from the provincial government as to whether or not the Trans Mountain pipeline assessments are going to go, devaluation is going to go forward, and that was last time was sitting somewhere around 8%. They have held it off for 1 year, but there is at this point no direction or no guarantee that that will not go into place for next year. So this primarily first thought was that this was a buffer in order to create a little bit of a shock absorber so that we didn't, or next council now, did not have to go into a year starting with an 8% tax increase and then throwing wages, incremental costs, inflationary costs, et cetera, on top of that, which probably would have left them at least in the 15 to 17% tax range going forward. And this was an effort to sort of phase that in for a couple of years. There's other factors to this as well. As noted in the report, or in this report, or yeah, this report actually, we did not get the grant funding approved for the Park Drive lift station. So now we are going to have to do some strategy and some thought as to whether or not we move forward with debt, and that will probably require extra planning time and things like that that would have been covered by that grant. And then, you know, I've alluded to this in some of the stuff I put out there, and it's been taken wrong by a few people, and I'll acknowledge that I've kind of got the horse in front of the cart on this, but whether or not we have a referendum on borrowing for this fall for projects, because we actually have to have staff define that first, what that looks like. And my attempt was actually to get people used to the idea that the District of Clearwater may have to borrow money. This fund could also incorporate some of that planning and things, but there's about, I would say, probably a half dozen things that staff could come up with that tell you that we need a little bit of flexibility in a special reserve, because things are really uncertain right now with federal and provincial funding especially.
Thank you. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Ms. Okay, well, I've still got a couple here. Surprising. Anyway, I did think it was important because I think it's a really proactive move, and I really appreciate the mayor bringing it forward, and look at what's been able to result. And it is just an excellent cushion moving forward, and it just shows some financial prudence there. I do want to go back to the OCP, and in the special projects that had been presented to council, I think at the bottom here it says January 24. The OCP update was going to come from the LG Housing Initiative. The amount was $35,000, and what you're saying today is that amount no longer exists. It's gone. So in order to complete the OCP, it had gone out for a request for tender. They came back, a contract was signed. What is it that's being asked of the district that more money would need to be incurred? Or did we just not pay that initial amount? Because there was a contract.
In the presentation for the budget amendment, council approved an amendment to the budget in 2025 to use the 148,000 to complete the OCP. And that was used in 2025. So that amendment.
I guess I'm trying to follow where the $148,000 went, because I think that the contract to complete the OCP was 129.
And I think there was an amendment to that.
Did the when did the amendment come to council for that? I don't remember that.
I remember something.
I'm just trying to follow it, because it's, you know, when I'm looking at something like the website redesign, and I think there's a lot of common sense to wait until the IT master plan. But through that fire presentation that we just had on the report, there was a number of recommendations that required website upgrades to it, and they seemed pretty important. So I'm trying to figure out, well, where's that money coming from? And if it's going to the OCP that's already seen a tremendous amount, what has to be done, and following that money? Because I really appreciated those recommendations for the website for that report that we just read. And I don't understand how
Well, the OCP has to be completed, so the council has to adopt it. If council does not want to put any funding towards the OCP is not adopted and the old OCP remains.
I think
So that's kind of where we're kind of
I
stuck.
think I have somewhat of the same question as Councillor Salmon, and it is ringing in my head that we did approve scope changes, is I think what we did. We did approve additional public consultation. But I think staff might have to get back to you on that unless it's ringing a bell or somebody can.
Yeah, Mayor Blackwell, through the chair, there was for sure at least 2 different scope changes, and a lot of this is tied to the amount of changes to the original wording that we've been kind of doing through the comments periods. There's been a substantial number of changes, as well as an additional public input opportunity, which certainly cost time to get true up here for those opportunities. The original scope of this RFP and for this OCP was it wasn't a rewrite, it was just a refresh. So most of the wording was supposed to sort of stay identical for this period. However, that clearly hasn't been what council's desired or the public has desired throughout the process. So there was several change orders for the amount of work that's gone into these additional wording changes.
But back to your point on whether or not the website design and implementation is important, I think it is too. I think we've been pushing.
I do, and I guess where I'm struggling with that OCP, and I'd like to find where the amendments were coming forward, because and if that's not what had been agreed upon, I know for sure I would have had a rethink about where we were spending that money and how it was being spent. So I don't remember any more money being asked of council for this OCP project. If it's for the implementation of the OCP, that's a different one. But to complete the OCP report itself, I'd like to know when we were asked for that.
The ask is right now.
Okay,
It's
but
in the
so
2026
I guess that's what I'm
budget.
saying is so was the work all done, but we hadn't approved the money. So like I don't want to have our back against the wall, but technically in the world I live in is if I don't have an agreement, like I'm going to stick to what the original requirements were. So to change it but not have a funding source, I just want to know how that's being accounted for.
So this is, I'll just read the council resolution that the budget amendment is based on. Recommendation, the council awards the contract to update the OCP to True Consulting for $124,850, and that council authorizes the expenditure of up to $148,000 to complete the District of Clearwater OCP, and that council directs staff to bring forward a budget amendment as required within this business cycle. So in the next meeting, we will bring that forward. And in 2025, the 148 which council approved has been spent.
Okay.
And when we go forward in 2026, that is what we're requesting here.
I'm just wondering if council or if staff could get back to this,
Yeah.
those details, and we can move on.
But I just want to understand if staff is clear, because I'm trying to figure out, we put out a project for the OCP to a company. They came back council approved up to 148. In my mind, was the company able to work within that 148, or at what point did they come back and say the scope's too much and so you need to go back? But if it just can't be completed, I feel a bit hamstrung on that there's no other choice because all this money's been spent, but there won't be a project finished. So to be accountable to that money, why couldn't it have been kept under the 148? And how does...
There were several scope changes to the project. So
I
it
don't
creates,
think that
bring
sorry.
it back. to
CAO
council.
Johnson is obviously the lead on this project. All the scope changes were approved by CAO Johnson. I certainly can't speak to them, but they were approved by him.
I'm going to suggest that staff bring it back at the next meeting for clarification, because we don't have that full information right now.
Councillor Bratton.
I just have one question. Every time we emailed in with a change to the verbiage and whatnot within the OCP, that was an extra cost?
For clarity, no, that wasn't an extra cost,
Okay.
but the amount of changes overall to this document is what's incurred the extra cost, because it wasn't called for in the RFP. It was in the original RFP, it was taking the old OCP because
Okay.
council specifically said at the time, it has good bones, let's reuse it. That was what was in the RFP. And what has sort of morphed out of that is a completely different
Right.
OCP.
Okay.
I do just want to just double check because I don't think, I mean, when the proponents put forward their proposal, they were the ones that spoke about the engagement. So I don't think we've gone over on engagement. So I'm trying to figure out like how wide a scope for this amount of money, given that we are being asked to forego other important projects. That's probably just a comment, but this has come as a surprise to me. Maybe I'm the only one around this table.
Yeah, no, I think there was scope change, but I think Mr. Johnson's going to have to speak to that specifically. I'm 90% certain we added one more engagement date and some extra work to this, and that was brought to council, but I can't be certain of that. I just read 460 some odd pages of documents over the last couple of days, and I got TNRD in a couple of days, so the brain isn't exactly sharp on that. So I think
That's okay. There's other important projects that I was reading about, and it's just questioning and following the money.
Can I have a question?
Oh, okay. Councillor Frizzle.
Sorry. So just to clarify, this was supposed to be a refresh OCP.
Yes.
And it became more of a renew or
Refresh Plus.
refresh plus, rather than just a refresh and using what was there and adding something. We've really kind of changed it a lot more than they anticipated, or they put into the RFP.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
May I continue with
Oh, yes.
the capital portion? Can I just, if you go to page 157 of your package, this is the capital project summary. And again, on the right of that summary is the what was presented on February 10th, and on the left is what we're recommending, staff is recommending as changes. So the first one is that columbarium or cemetery upgrade. We've delayed it a bit and added a bit. So instead of $100,000 to be spent in 2026, we've added $130,000 to be $30,000 in 26 and 127. And that is to include things such as a scatter garden, to include fencing, to include lots of the things that we wanted to include, and our policy, our cemetery bylaw considers. So we've expanded the project a bit and we've delayed it a bit. In the Medevac helipad construction phase, when we presented it on February the 10th, it was $1,000,007, and we have an updated estimate of $1,070,000. And the kicker is it was presented as a 90%, 10%. It's now 75, 25%. So instead of $100,000 about our proportion, it would now be $267,000 as our portion. Coming from, right now, it's coming out of the Community Enhancement Reserve. Centennial Hall siding, we've pushed it from 2027 to 2028, just moved it along a bit. The Dutch Lake Community Center Playground, we've moved it from 2027 to 2028, and we've cut it in half, recommending that we would need partners for that playground to make it happen, and it might take some time to make that happen. Just in a general comment, as we saw in the report we had on February 10th regarding parks and playgrounds, all of those funding have changed or are recommended to go to Community Enhancement Reserve. The tennis court retrofit, just changing the funding from grant to Community Enhancement Reserve. Splash Park Playground, just changing the funding from grant to Community Enhancement Reserve. And Kapuscinski Ballpark upgrade, changing the funding from surplus to Community Enhancement Reserve. And finally, the Parks Drive lift station we've delayed it a bit so that we can figure out what a good funding model is on that project. And last, we also talked a little bit about the fire reserve and how fire capital reserve, we had scheduled about $135,000 to the fire capital reserve. It was recommended that perhaps we change that out a bit, and when it's time to purchase the new fire engine, perhaps we go for a combination of savings or reserves and debt. And as a result, we may not need to save up all that money for the fire truck. And we could put $10,000 or $50,000 in the capital reserves, $75,000 in the roads reserves, and then $10,000 additional dollars is required in operating training. And just a quick note, some financial risks, as with all financial plans, you will have risks. Some of the risks are economic, and in that we have the provincial government impacts on the budget side, the BC assessment changes. We talked about that earlier with financial stability reserve, and then the debt process. It's never a for sure thing. There's always some risk in whether or not you would get the debt that you would like. There's a risk about catastrophic events or failures. Those occur. We have pretty good emergency funds at the moment. There's also risks about unknown litigations. And staff, we're going to have a lot of staff changes in 2026. We're doing our best to mitigate it, but when you have 4 people that are brand new, it's going to take time to manage through that. And we mentioned earlier that we do have reasonable savings in surplus. We have appropriate insurance coverage, and we are scheduled to do a property appraisal in 2026. And we have good protective services program, the new fire mitigation and initial attack crew, as well as Fire Smart programs. And that brings us to the resolution that I have for council to consider.
Councillor Sim.
So just a couple more questions on the report that was brought forward. Project 184, the Medevac helipad construction. At the time that this grant was brought forward, there was hope that it was going to be at 90%, but we had reviewed that it could be 75%. And economic conditions have changed. I think probably 6 months if this had been put forward, like in an approval stage, we might have been more successful. The world has changed. What I am curious about is the project cost has increased by $63,000. And so what has been the project cost increase since it was presented at January 7th?
So 1007.
So not just the funding, but the project itself. That doesn't seem like a lot of time, and I don't know why there would be a $1,000 increase.
Councillor Zim through the chair. I don't believe there has been a $63,000 increase. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, there may have been an inaccurate number in the original, what was presented to council. I believe I did correct that at the meeting. That was actually 1.07 million at the time. It was our Class B estimate from Drew. So I think that was just a bit of a typo at the time.
So what you're saying is this was a line error versus
Correct.
Because we do not have a contract out yet.
No, we don't
We
have
do
a,
not have a bid. We do not have a contract out.
no, but the 1.07
this is
million
on-
is our,
This is based on the estimate, not the actual gone to bid contract.
yes, and to be clear, the grant hasn't been awarded yet at this stage either. What we were made aware of was if we are successful with the grant, we would not be qualified for the 15% on top of it. And I tried to inquire with the province as to why that might be, but I reading between the lines, it was take what you can get, maybe.
All right. Well, I appreciate that clarification, and of course that the report, it indicated that there was an increase as opposed to a line item, and it just
For sure. And if we are successful with the grant, I will be bringing a report back to council outlining what the increase would be and approval from council.
hold it. Why would there be an increase? And like, are you just
Sorry.
talking about grant increase?
Just for the extra 15%. We'd still have to come back for council for approval with that.
Okay. The other comment is that as for a couple of things that we've heard in here is moving, and I love the scatter garden. I think there's going to make a lot of people, especially the committee members, very, very happy about that addition. So thank you for including that in the budget. A number of things have been suggested that it now start using the community enhancement reserve. I don't know if when we approved the changes to that policy, did we have kind of like a financial scope about how much that would be used each year for projects for the community? The reason I ask is because that's a good chunk of change that is intended for community, but if it's drawn without any strategy, it'll be drawn down quite quickly. So is there an eye on how that fund is managed and maybe internally how it's accessed? It would be nice to see something with that amount of money lasting a very long time. But if we do, $75,000 here, $250,000 there, and it's for playgrounds, is that the intent? Or should a lens on strategy on how that money be used be considered?
When we brought the reserve bylaw amendment forward, there was no feedback from council as to how they would wish to keep that reserve at a certain amount. So at the start of the year, we're expecting that reserve to be about $3.3 or $4 million. Council has already granted over $300,000 in community grants. And for capital, it was about $100,000. So these all of these items are additional for the community at large, playgrounds that a lot of people from different communities use. And so with that thinking, that's what the thought was when we were funding those projects, because it's a large community benefit and it was broader than the District of Clearwater individuals. If council wishes to use different funding for those projects, we could do that. But it seemed like these were important projects to council to repair and make sure that these playgrounds are safe. And that was the logic that was used in that in February 10th meeting when CEO Johnson presented that playground report.
And all of that's true. I'm just saying, and again, in the spirit of with what the mayor's bringing forward is just looking for those financial cushions, is being really mindful about drawing down a strong resource and how that's utilized. And I think we did have that discussion around the council table about just being careful that if we just keep picking away at it, it'll slowly be gone. And so what we might want to look at for a longer vision out of that fund as on the horizon. Does that make sense?
Yep. Go ahead, Councillor.
Are
Sorry.
you suggesting that money be used for bigger projects, or?
No, I'm just saying that we haven't had a discussion as a council about the long-term or even short-term.
Correct.
We've watched projects come up. That's what we voted for. But we as a council haven't sat down and said, okay, Are we going to look at 10% of this to be going into playgrounds? Maybe we want 10% to be going into something else. Like, what's the strategy before we just pick away at it and just having that mindset? It is not to suggest large projects. It is to just have a discussion about it as a council, which we have not done.
And to further that, I think there's a few philosophy discussions made on this, and when we're looking at things like playgrounds, yes, there's the requirement now that we might, like many other things, now that we know, we have to react and we have to find some way to fund that. Fully understand that. You know, things like a potential playground down at Kapuscinski Ballpark is a long-term community request, and that is a completely new facility along with potentially improved bathroom facilities, because if we call the ones down there actual bathrooms, I think that's a bit of a stretch. So these are the kind of things that I think that the organization that donated this money to the District of Clearwater would have approved probably on their own granting program. And I have zero problem with us doing that as community benefits. The same goes for the helipad, because this is a new thing. I do have concerns about where the costs are going, or the costs are increasing to, and where that is, and I hope we can find other ways to create savings there so that we won't have to dip so far. But we are talking about a grant by percentage, not necessarily, you know, if we were to find the savings, that would just essentially reduces the amount of money we're applying for grant for. It doesn't actually save that money, it's a percentage of. But considering those were essentially logs that paid for this possible project coming forward, or that portion of the project coming forward, you know, the risk related to industrial accidents is one of the reasons why this helipad has been asked for so many years, and that we've now found an avenue to move forward with it. I think, respectfully, I think that this funding from this grant fund is where I think the spirit of this lies.
You're right. And I think, again, my comments are the fact that we sit down and we just continue to leave that as its intention.
Agreed.
That's all it is that there was an intention, and I think that every consideration has been made with that, but to also have a lens, knowing that there will be a turnover at this table, and making sure that it's just not an untapped piggy bank that can be tapped into.
So to clarify your position, it's not being asked to put guardrails on the fund, more a philosophical conversation about what that fund is used for.
That's right.
Were there parameters? I wasn't here when that fund was initiated. Were there parameters on receiving that fund from the donors that would speak to that?
No, there weren't. And it's a very complicated question. We could probably talk about an hour and a half on it.
Again, it's one of the reasons why to have the philosophy, and just for council to just to be aware. Like 3.3, you said?
The current balance at the end of 2025, we're estimating to be about 3.3.
So 3.3, and with the number of grants that have been extended from there, it could go quite quickly. I think that the expense, a daycare, that's an awesome thing. The helipad, an awesome thing. But as we move forward, just how do we stretch what was an incredible gift to the district? Does that clarify for you?
Yeah, that's got it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Any other questions? So we have a
Do you want to move sorry, I'll move the resolution.
Sure. Mayor Blackwell.
Well, how can we do that without the information for the OCP? Can we still do that?
I believe we can. This can be amended, or different funding source can be found if we.
So this does not have the OCP in it. So
Okay.
the $130,000, the first couple lines, comes from the savings. Let me just go back here. So 130,000 comes right here for the savings that were generated from this. The 60,000 comes from savings that were generated from moving the special projects around. And then the other $75,000 comes from changing how we've allocated the $135,000 that would have gone into the fire capital reserve Now we're splitting it 3 ways. 75 of that will go to the capital roads reserve. 50,000 would go back into the capital fire reserve, and then 10,000 into fire training, fire crew training. That's what those 3 paragraphs suggest.
And so my question with that, with the $35,000 for the website refresh, does staff feel confident that we can find funding to help some of those website recommendations as part of the fire report go forward?
That project has not been even in our financial plan yet. So that has not even been entered into our financial plan. I think we would have to work with the fire team to determine what the project actually is, and then we can fund it.
Okay. And that's okay. It was just such a good report, and it would be nice to be able to action reports that we get.
Yep.
I moved it. Somebody has to second it.
Oh, sorry, I had discussion.
Yep. And all those in favor?
Thank
And
you.
it passes.
So
Noted opposed?
Just had a hand down, which means that it's a reluctant agreement.
So there was a lot of discussion about the changes in the operating or the project plan. Are there any resolutions that council would like to make so that I not implement it when I bring it back to the financial plan? Is there any so we had, for example, there was a lot of discussion about community enhancement reserve being funding the playgrounds. Would you rather that staff put it back to where it was? Okay.
No, because it is 2027, and I think it's an important project to look at. So it is good to place. It does not mean that it can't come back as an amendment after a fulsome discussion. So I think for me, it's a good placeholder.
And I would agree with that. I think that some of these projects, the fact that we are 2026 and 2027 leaves a lot of room to find other options. To dig hard, ask the community in a few cases on things like, as suggested, the mural project, to find solutions for this. But at this point, this basically sets up what we need to spend and what we need to spend it on at this point, noting, I would agree with Councillor Sim and others, that there is some need for the website project. Just don't also know if the staff capacity is there with multiple mat leaves happening, which is the other issue. But yeah, I think at this point, I like what's here, and noting that things might change. Mr. Prime.
And Mayor Blackwell, you did bring up a great point. That was one of the main reasons we did cut the website, was just entirely staff capacity. I'm managing the election this year, down to staff members in my department. It was pretty easy to cut when you looked at that.
That does raise one question. Is there enough in there for staffing for the summer, noting that there's probably holidays plus shortages? It would be a shame to burn everybody out and then...
From a staffing capacity, we've done whatever we can to bring people on board on a most timely basis, and then to train, because training for some of these positions is not a weekend, it's 3 months. So we've done whatever we can to accommodate. Will it be a challenge? For sure. I don't know. Will there be extra time spent in the office? Yes. Unless we can we have money in the budget if we need to bring somebody in, I suppose, for consulting if we have to.
I think that's important to know, that there's an eye on that if it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a major concern of management right now.
Yeah.
Did we move
We're
that?
doing the best we can
we
to make
adopted
it work.
that.
Finally, I just,
We need a,
we have to talk about public engagement for the financial plan. So the financial plan is, this year we were not heavy on public engagement. However, 2025 was a very heavy public engagement year. We did hold a February 17th, hold a in-person community engagement event. We had the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan and the OCP there. And we got about 24 community members, and you can see in the report the comments that we've had or received. And usually we ask council is that we've done sufficient public engagement for the 26 to 2030 financial plan. We have one more resolution there.
Not this
No,
one.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was all part of that one motion.
okay.
Sorry, okay.
Councillor Sims?
Yeah, so the one consultation in person, given that there was a very robust for 2025, I can understand that. I do appreciate the number of financial documents that have been loaded up onto the district website. And are those planning to be updated so that people can follow along as the story evolves? And I did go into the infamous Questica, and I think that there are a few things there that could be upgraded or updated.
Yeah, typically we don't put too much in Questica unless that's been audited. So we'll have the open book available for everybody once the audit is complete, which is coming very soon. And then when it comes to financial planning, we'll only put a few key projects up there for now, because council may decide or may not decide to have some of those projects. So I want to just have the information that is approved and adopted by council.
I just understood that the program was for approved projects, grant projects, or whatever, is that you could follow along with the progress and it would show how much of the budget's been spent, how far along the project. Did I misunderstand that facet of that program?
It on projects that have been audited and completed. Yes.
Okay, I thought that the public could follow along as they were, like in real time, so that they could understand what was happening.
We don't have that sophisticated of a system. Yeah.
As soon as you are comfortable with an audit is another term for you have
Reviewed
verified
it
these
and
expenses
the auditors have had a look at it.
Yeah.
And we've made sure all the expenses are in. Because what happens is when you're doing a day-to-day, you're doing it on a cash basis. And audit is on an accrual basis. It's a different accounting method. And so you have to have almost a year end or a cutoff every month. And that's not exactly how we perform our financial
Great.
duties here.
So anyway, I'm happy to move the resolution, noting that the website will continue to be updated to keep people informed.
Yes.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. And all those in favor? And it passes. Thank you. And we have recommendation that the committee of the whole meeting be adjourned. All those in favor?
Thank you. We will take a recess until 2:30. It's 2:19 right now to regroup and reset and get a glass of water and do whatever else you need, because we just did a lot of talking. Anyway. the wrong side of the hammer. Call this District of Clearwater regular council meeting for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Sim people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Are there any late items that anybody would like to add to the agenda? Notice of motion. Okay. And that would fall under notices of motion, item 20. So 20.1, Councillor Matheson's notice of motion. Any other late items to add to the agenda? If not, can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda with the late item added? Councillor Bratton moves, seconded by Councillor Fizzle. All those in favor? And that passes. Declarations of no, adoption of the agenda. Declaration of no conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. It's a pretty fine line one, but I will step out on the item 18.1, BC Farmers Market request for a letter of support for Farmers Market Nutrition Program. This is a different organization, but my wife's program does benefit from this, so I would declare conflict of interest on that and let Councillor Matheson. It's specifically directly to the farmers market, not necessarily to the overall budget of YCS. So I think you can probably declare a distinction there. But staff wants to comment? No? Okay. Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, good point. Quorum is still required. So with me, that's just, you still do have quorum. Any other known conflict or of interest or pecuniary interest declarations? Seeing none, we move on to item 8.1, minutes of the regular council meeting held February 10th, 2026. There is a recommendation. Councillor Matheson. Moving. Seconded by Councillor Fizzle. If you see any errors or omissions, please let staff know. All those in favor? And that passes. Adoption of the minutes of committee meetings. Recommendation from February 10th, Committee of the Whole. Recommendation from Committee of the Whole 1. That the council directs staff to develop a 5-year plan to upgrade the playgrounds and park amenities, and that the council directs staff to bring a report to the future council meeting. Councillor Matheson.
Oh, can we have a question on that?
You can have a question on that. Question to staff on this.
Well, I'm just wondering, along with this motion, given our previous discussion at the committee, is it reasonable to also bring forward suggested funding strategies for the plan, or is that not worth doing?
Councillor Sim through the mayor, that was going to be included in the 5-year plan report.
Should it be
Mr.
cited?
Johnson.
I think that's an automatic part of the plan.
I believe it was an automatic, yeah.
Well, sometimes, like when we get other infrastructure master plans, or sometimes we don't always get that. Like we get funding, how much it will cost, but not proposed funding sources or suggested funding sources.
I have no issue adding that to the
Thank you.
the motion, but we are bringing this out of Committee of the Whole where this motion was passed first. So we are amending a motion that's already been passed.
Suggested, but we should,
Yes.
at the district level, this table, we should be able to make an amendment to it, because they've just suggested that we have that.
That's correct. Councillor Sim through the mayor, the council is able to amend the recommendation from the
So
committee.
are you okay with that amendment and before we move this one?
Well, considering I suggested, I'm super good with it.
Cool. Are you going to move it as well?
Yeah, but now I can't remember what I said. So where's the motion?
So the motion is the council directs staff to develop a 5-year plan to update the playgrounds and parks amenities, and that a funding plan be incorporated.
Suggested
in that.
funding plan be incorporated.
And the council directs staff to bring the report to a future council.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
So
So
moved.
moved by this and seconded by Councillor Fizzle. All those in favor, and that passes. We move on to item 10.1, cannabis retail license application number CL 25-01, proposed establishment name BB Cannabis. There are 2 recommendations here. I believe, do we have somebody online speaking to this?
We do not have any of the TNRD planners here at this time. I'm not quite sure why, but
Do we need time to try to contact them? I mean, I know our meeting schedule is a little bit off. So
yeah.
do we want to take a 5-minute recess?
Take
to try
5-minute
to-
recess, that'd be great.
Yeah, I would much rather have all the proper information and the ability to question. And so we'll take a 5-minute recess till, let's go 2:40-ish.
And Mayor, you're live.
Thank you, and we're back in session. Unfortunately, there's something must have occurred at the TNRD because our planning department, we are unable to get planning to speak to this right now. I'm going to ask the question if council is comfortable moving forward based on the staff report alone, or do they wish the time to ask questions? Noting that the recommendations are to authorize a mail-out notice of intent to all properties, owners and occupiers within 100 meters of 343 Clearwater Valley Road, and to advertise it in the newspaper. And then the second recommendation is that the cannabis retail license application be taken to a public hearing. So thoughts, Councillor Matheson?
I've read it through. I don't see anything that's changed. It's simply a letter to go out asking for to notify residents of the community, and I'm comfortable moving forward with what information we have.
Questions for staff?
Sorry, what?
So the questions for staff would be, once that this, how long is the feedback for?
Councillor Sim through the, Mayor Blackwell, the public hearing would be held on the 31st. It's a 2-week period as well.
So March 31st?
Correct.
Okay. And so in the advertising, what's the method that people would be able to submit their feedback?
Via email, letter, dropping it off in person, or attending in person for the public hearing on the 31st.
And this will be on the website as well?
Correct. It'd be in the newspaper, on the website, on our Facebook, and mailed out to the affected residents.
And occupiers.
And occupiers.
Once the feedback is received at the public hearing on March the 31st, do you know how long it goes before the government takes that feedback? Like, when would they make a decision?
I'm not, Councillor Sim, I'm not certain when the feedback, if the council were to approve and sort of send that back to the Liquor Control Regulation Board, I'm not certain how long it would take for them to sort of get that license and their next steps.
So, Mr. Prime, in your understanding, and again, because we don't have the TNRD, do you understand that this particular process is important in the final license being issued or not issued?
It is very important. Without the approval of the council, it would not go forward with the LCRB.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. So it does have to refer back to the Liquor Cannabis Control Board, who makes the next decision in this process, and then it does it come back to us again?
This would be the last time it comes to council. It would not come back at
Okay,
third
so
time.
that's a whole other process that the public will probably have input to as well, to be on our process. Okay, thank you. Councillor Bratton.
If we approve today and it goes out to public and they do, we have it's not an open house. What did you call that? Public consultation. It is the liquor board that takes the information from the public to assess it. We don't have anything to do with it.
Councillor Bratton through Mayor Blackwell, essentially this would be 2 weeks for a public hearing.
Yeah.
And the public hearing is a statutory process. If council, having heard all the input from letters and from the public at the public hearing, chooses to approve and recommend that the license be issued, we would then send a letter to the LCRB.
Gotcha.
Then they would take their steps through. They have a longer process after that, but that would be what council would either approve that it would go forward or decline at that stage.
I was just confirming we do today and then the consultation, and then that's the end of our input to that.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, further questions or comments? If not, Councillor
No, I think it's been really good to clarify that, because this whole process was about first rezoning and then it would go to a public hearing, and then we would hear from the community itself, which would then inform the decision about the application process. And that is how this council has operated. Okay.
That is correct.
That's great. And we don't generally, we haven't seen a lot of public hearings in recent years. I see them every third or fourth TNRD meeting, so they're a little bit more common. Our policies versus TNRD policies are slightly different because we just actually changed because there's no available newspaper to publish it in, so we do a lot more web stuff, but this is fairly standard from everything I can see here. But yes, I'm quite sure that the Liquor Control Board will take our recommendation with probably the comments from the public, and then take that under advisement, but then also have their own process, which includes a whole bunch of stuff like legal vetting and criminal record checks and things like that.
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Further thoughts or comments? If not, go ahead, Councillor Frizzle.
So it goes to, we get the letters, it goes to public consultation, then we make the decision if we forward it on to the Liquor Control Board.
We have a public hearing, at which point the letters, information received via written submissions, open public submissions
Right.
during the public hearing.
Yep,
All of those are considered. We close the public hearing, and then a resolution comes to council
that's what,
after
okay,
the public hearing. That is almost always the same meeting.
gotcha.
That's
That's what I wanted to clarify,
Yeah.
that when
So
we did it, yeah.
we don't make the decision in the public hearing. We hear from the public both in written
Yes.
form or in person verbal form, and then we go to a decision making process as part of the regular agenda beyond that point. Okay. There are two recommendations. What is the desire of council? Moved first by, seconded by Councillor Bratton, that the administration be authorized to mail a notice of intent to all property owners, occupiers within 100 meters of 343 Clearwater Valley Road, and advertise 2 editions of the Clearwater Times newspaper for a proposed new cannabis retail store. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? And that passes. And I have recommendation 2. That the license application be taken to a public hearing. Moved by Councillor Matheson, seconded by Councillor Bratton. Further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor? And our planning department on this. We move to item 10.2, draft Clearwater Official Community Plan bylaw number 331/2026. We have 2 recommendations, and I'm quite sure somebody will be speaking to this for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. We do have Ms. McCourt here from True to discuss the draft.
Thank you. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So today before you, you'll have the draft of the official community plan. This is the result of the previous public engagement that we've undertaken with the district, as well as previous workshops. So all of the feedback has been incorporated up until this point, although we are still open to receiving feedback prior to advancing to public hearing. Open to answer any questions that that council may have.
Okay, so we have 2 recommendations. Are there, so public hearing happens after the first and second readings. So that is the part of recommendation 2. Are there any questions on this at this point from council to, yeah. There's a lot here, and I will make a first comment. I have received some feedback over the last couple days as this version of the OCP has gone out. I believe that there are a few people that are still commenting using the previous version because some of the suggestions that they made were actually errors or spelling mistakes and things like that that have already been corrected. So the draft that you have on table here is the freshest draft that we have at this point.
And that's correct. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will be able to make sort of those minor amendments up until the 3rd reading. So before the 3rd reading, we can kind of make those last minute corrections throughout the month here, just to tidy up any of those glaring mistakes. We have already reviewed them. Some of them certainly make perfect sense, and those will be incorporated as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any questions? Councillor Sim, start us off.
Thanks very much. In the report, and there's been lots of discussion about that growth can't necessarily occur in Clearwater unless that there is an attachment to district services. So an example, and I think you've made this amendment, I guess it would be on page 23 of the report. So no commercial or industrial development shall proceed without municipal servicing, water, sewer, drainage, roads, or an alternative at the discretion of the district. That's for the industrial. Is there a section in this, and I believe I saw it, is that the same for the residential? Because otherwise I'm just seeing that we're landlocked in services and no growth because it's out of reach. How's that being addressed?
You can either take
And Ms. McCourt, that's specifically regarding the future development areas where is.
Sure. Am I okay to just answer? Do you want me to go through the mayor? Sorry, it's a little bit tricky. I can't see anything on the screen, but unfortunately,
No,
no face,
just answer, and if I need to
Okay.
do something, then we'll just.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor Buckwell. Councillor Sim, just for clarity, I'm not sure if you're looking at a page on the council agenda or a page in the OCP. So are we referencing page 23 then of the OCP document?
Yes.
I'm assuming
That's
Yes,
correct.
it is.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah, so
policy number C.
Policy C in future development areas. So just for clarity, future development areas are not intended to go forward until there is sufficient demand for additional commercial or industrial land to the point where there is not available land. So it would require undertaking planning studies, of course, getting the approval of council. It would need an OCP amendment to get into an appropriate land use designation, and servicing would be reviewed at that stage. So at this time, our recommendation is that those lots be serviced. That would be at the discretion, of course, of the district. So if there was an exception to be made, it could be considered. But the policy right now encourages commercial industrial development in that area, that they shouldn't proceed until servicing is sufficient so that it can be supported.
So just clarification on that. So what you're saying is this policy only applies to future development areas.
Yes.
Is there a similar policy for current residential industrial areas?
Yeah, there is, but it's not exactly the same. So there are different servicing requirements for different areas depending on what servicing is available and what uses are in place. So if we go into the land use section of the OCP, and I'm just going to quickly flip on my copy here. So if you see me turning my head, I'm just looking at a different screen. Just pull up the table. So if we go to page 92 of the document, that's probably a good place to look to quickly see a summary of what the servicing requirements are by land use. And we can see there, so for example, starting with an urban residential designation, the servicing requirement there is to have a lot size of 400 square meters or greater and serviced by district water and sewer. Now, as soon as we found...
Hold on,
Sorry?
just to stop you for a half second. 92 on our document is 3.2.8 and is all about industrial. So I think maybe...
Okay.
Maybe...
Sorry, let me... 83. Sorry, it's 92 on my sidebar, but it's actually 83 of the document. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies for that. Yes. Okay. I'll give you all checks to get to that page. Let me know when you're ready.
We're there. Page
Okay, wonderful.
or page 118 of our agenda as on our end. So, oh, there we are.
Don't know what's happening with the...
Oh,
Yeah, well, just turn me off for a second there. And
Okay,
can you hear me okay?
we can absolutely hear you. Okay, just go ahead.
Okay. So starting with the urban residential, those lots are intended to support the highest density and in turn have the highest level of servicing required. As we fan out from there, suburban residential, you'll see that the minimum lot size is smaller where it's serviced by district water and district sewer. And then there's a larger lot size where it's serviced by district water but has, say, a septic system. As the lot areas increase and the density decreases, we get to country residential. There again, different lot sizes depending on what's available. So one lot size where district water is available with an on-site septic. And then again, that lot size increases where we start becoming dependent on a well and a septic. So in the case of residential development, servicing is really dependent on the type of land use, the density supported. Hopefully that helps, and I can explain any further if there's additional questions.
I'm sure there will be. Go ahead.
Does anybody else? I mean, I guess where the challenge, and you've had to address this here in Clearwater, is which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and about the services. And so I'm wondering, with some of these rewrites, how has that been addressed? That a major focus of this plan and of the new development, especially for housing, going down Park Drive, is so dependent on district servicing, and how do we move ahead given the fact that it's dependent on district servicing? Like, has that been addressed? So in that statement that I made at the beginning, where you said, or at the discretion of the district, is that applicable for also the residential areas, given we are in a unique situation? Like, we're not a Salmon Arm and we're not a larger place. Like, we don't have anything. And how do we get to the vision of the OCP without it? Are there ways that we can be innovative?
For the urban residential designation, that would be certainly a swing to not have it fully serviced, because that designation would support things like apartment buildings, a mix of different types of townhouse buildings, higher density uses that typically do require servicing. So I think if we're talking about allowing urban residential with alternate services, we need to look a little bit more closely at the impacts of that, and perhaps have an engineer speak to it. Typically, because of the density involved, you would want those types of uses serviced by water and sewer. Certainly for suburban residential, there's that flexibility where the density is lower. But for urban residential, we would encourage full servicing.
Sorry, and to clarify on this, is why we encourage this on urban residential? I'm assuming, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, because of health requirements for not only a standard septic field but a secondary area for a septic field if the first one fails. Is that sort of where this comes from? Because 400 square meter lot is not hugely large.
Absolutely, you would run into that issue certainly with large or smaller lot sizes. You've got to have the area to do it. This would be sort of best practice to have these lots fully serviced. So again, if we're talking about more suburban style lots, just single family, it's not so much of a concern, maybe even duplex in some cases. But when we start getting into land use designations that support a broader context of uses with higher densities, you would want to have those serviced.
Yeah, these are specific requirements of the health authority that are above our pay grade and our ability to influence this table.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to typically, like in urban residential, I wouldn't even sort of get into community water, because once you start servicing off of wells to multiple houses, like, it's quite complicated, and it's a little bit out of my scope of practice myself. But the areas that are identified for urban residential are identified closer to the core of the community and not spread out into wider areas where you would see things like servicing by wells.
Thank you. Further questions? Comments?
But I don't know if that for the council table, if that's actually addressed how we move forward. So, or what do you think, Mayor Blackwell? Like,
well,
how?
I don't know if that's a discussion for the OCP. I think it's more of a discussion of some of the things that we hinted on earlier. And the discussion is, now that we are aware as of earlier in the committee of the whole,
Yeah.
that the Park Drive grant is has not been approved. Do we go to things like debt? Do we go to things like internal borrowing from other reserves in order to accomplish these things? And I fully expect that staff will be bringing a report back on that shortly, within the next few weeks. But that takes time to plan out exactly how you do that. I think my personal feeling is that we do have to move forward on some of these, whether that be going to debt or other methods that do not involve waiting for grants and opportunities on some of them. Specific to this one, I feel that this is one of those ones there we need to consider this. Same with the siphon project.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think because it's such an interesting plan, especially as we go down that corridor and some of the feedback we got, like how great that corridor would be as you go past Bilo, right? Like that would be great. And
my only caution on this is, and this will come up a little bit further in the mayor's report, because of changes to and challenges to both DRIPA and the Minerals Act and other concerns that I am hearing for involvement to the mine. My optimism that the mine is going to move forward at any sort of rapid pace, and also noting that it is not on the short list, does seem to buy us some time to do some of this work, because I don't feel that is going to move forward at the accelerated pace that was indicated before the Cowichan Lakes, or Cowichan Tribes decision, and the Minerals Act, as well as other things that I'm aware of. So I'm not saying that we don't come up with a plan to do this outside of the grant process. I also do think that the likelihood to need housing at a scale that would include the mine is not necessarily there at the pace that we were assuming it was.
And that's all true. I do think that just new builds are attractive, and will continue to be so. And there's not a lot of communities like ours that could. But we have an interesting challenge, and how do we get around it? You've heard me speak about Bowen Island, that projects have gone ahead, but there's been caveats that once district services, that they would need to attach to it. So just as long as somewhere in the OCP that we're still able to achieve some of the vision that's been established here, knowing that we have some restrictions, and that we accept a mindset of creativity and the possibilities rather than just a no. Is that possible to be captured? Because it's an aspirational document, but we need an aspirational mindset and policies to go with it. That's why I thought on page 23, that sentence, I wanted to make sure it also applied to residential as well as industrial.
Again, I would just reiterate, if we want to allow for servicing by, say, septic systems for development, then we need to be mindful of the lot areas required and the densities associated with those. So my concern would be if we're interested in moving away from, full level servicing, that we should consider in that case then down designating those lots to have lower densities potentially. Because where we don't have sufficient servicing, we've got to have sufficient area to house a septic system, particularly if we're talking about larger buildings or denser development. So in that case, typically those lands would not be designated urban, but instead would receive something like a suburban designation, or perhaps a modified suburban designation, to allow some different uses away from just single or two family. So those would be sort of the caveats I would consider. I see that my colleague Gary's got his hand up as well, so he may have some thoughts he wants to add in. So, Gary, did you have a thought on this as well?
Thank you, Brianne. Yes, hi, good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm just going to pop in here for a quick sec. On your screen, you'll see before you, you have the Subdivision and Development Standards Bylaw, 2017. You'll also notice that Service Level 1 is identified as sort of the orange area in the center of the district. I recall, Councillor Sim, you were talking about Park Drive as an example of, we look at alternative servicing if it isn't feasible to do water and sanitary as would be expected of an urban area. Currently, the way your previous bylaw is in place that we have consideration for when we're doing the OCP is everything within that orange area, Service Level 1, requires connection to a piped water and piped sanitary system. So if we were to look at going in a different direction, you'd be revisiting this bylaw to make those exceptions. So this, the idea is it's been established years ago that the center of the core is where the attention goes, but in order to develop in those areas, you do need to provide that pipe system for both water and sanitary. So if there was any confusion or thought to maybe deviate, it would also require revisiting this bylaw.
And just on that, I'm looking at that map as I see it right now. That does include part of Park Drive, but I think it's just up to the lots around the school and does not go beyond that. Is that what I'm seeing on this? No,
zoom in
sorry.
Here.
Sorry, that's better. Thank you. I was mistaking the highway for Park Drive on this map.
Yeah, it captures land on both sides of Park Drive.
That is Dutch Lake there, off to one side with the other. So, to both of you, is this generally tackled in the zoning bylaw or is it tackled in the OCP? Because the next phase would be going at the zoning bylaw.
Tackled in what respect? How to service?
Sorry, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, typically it goes down all the way down to the subdivision sort of level. So
Yeah.
you have an application that comes in and says, okay, we have an application for subdivision. However, and we're in service level area 1, and we want to do septic, but we want to hook up to piped water. Well, the response should be from the district, sorry, but you're in level 1. It requires you connecting to both systems. And if the system isn't nearby, then how are we going to make that connection? It's either the developer driven that makes a connection. If this district is so inclined, they can work out a cost sharing measure, or they can put some money towards it, pulling from the ratepayers, or look at other possible alternatives that may work. There brings in additional landowners, maybe. It's all unique depending on the scenario, but typically the developers are required to connect to the services as per that bylaw.
And that, you've just summarized it. And if there's no services, then there's no development. So how do we provide a caveat given the fact that otherwise we just let places go empty? So you've made some great suggestions about maybe you have to look at alternatives, and how do you have a caveat in the OCP so that this isn't restrictive under our realities, and the fact that we just learned today that we were declined for a grant that was going to be really important.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that information as well, new to us. But yes, through the mayor, we can look at adding a policy or two in the document that suggests that, you know, if there's opportunity presents themselves to work with developers where appropriate, then we can look at that. I mean, it comes down to the will of council and the will of the ratepayers, and to, you know, if they want to put more money towards it. Typically, developments are developer driven, but if you're looking at a hybrid or a unique situation, it doesn't say you can't do it. We can put some language in the OCP that can support that as well. I wouldn't say that in the absence of that doesn't mean you can't do anything of that nature, but if the suggestion is to put some in just to make it clear that, you know, there's some opportunity, maybe if everything aligns and there's options that are feasible, then so be it. So yeah, I mean, if the question is, we add some language, I don't see any harm in it. We wouldn't want to lock it down, but I mean, we can leave it open as developer driven. However, in situations where it may be appropriate, municipality may be assisting or other options. We'll work on the wording. I don't have it off the top of my head, obviously.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Bratton has a question.
There must be some sort of caveat in there, because you have Dutch Lake Center, Dutch Lake subdivision included in that type 1 area, and there's only water there. There's no sewer. So we must have something happening.
Go
The
ahead.
Dutch,
Unless I'm looking
if I
at the
may-
map wrong.
Yeah, and I've, as sorry, through the mayor, yeah, Chris Crowell isn't with us. He'd probably be able to speak to the engineering side or the servicing side of it better than Brianna or myself. The bylaw is 2017. I can't speak to if there was a bylaw prior that set this service area up, and I'm not sure as developed with the Dutch Lake subdivision that happened prior to 2017 or after 2017.
Okay.
Where I'm trying to go with that is the bylaw would apply from 2017 forward. So you would expect that no development should be proceeding that isn't fully serviced unless there's some opportunity for an exemption, which I don't know the bylaw well enough to know there's exemption opportunities.
And Mayor Blackwell, there is an exemption if the property is located more than 150 meters from the service, then they aren't obligated to connect.
Yeah, they're not obligated to connect. My understanding, remembering way back in time, because it was 10 years ago almost, at the time, and I think Councillor Frizzle is alluding to this, there was a plan that we had applied for a grant for that would have surrounded all of Dutch Lake with a sewer system, which may have been why this was in that 2017 version of the zoning bylaw.
If I may, I'd like to put the land use map up on the screen, Gary, if you've finished speaking to that. I'm going to just share my screen for that. So just that we can look at the map as we're discussing. So just further to the comments about land uses and servicing. So as you can see around Dutch Lake, there are a number of different land uses that are occurring. So in the area that is designated urban residential, those undeveloped areas, there would be an expectation there that services be extended. However, in some of those existing areas or where servicing isn't available, you'll see that they've got existing suburban designations where there is flexibility in some cases. Now, there are policies in your existing OCP as well as in the proposed OCP. There are not to be any septic systems within 90 meters of Dutch Lake. That's not a new policy, that's existing. So that could sort of further inhibit some development depending on where exactly it was located. But just to add that caveat to it. So I can't speak to that service map, although Elsid's brought up a good point where it had the caveat for the 150 meters, but the land use designations themselves lay out what the servicing expectations are. So it's not to say that there aren't land uses, areas available for development that don't require full servicing. It's just where those are located. If we want to move away from requiring full servicing in our core areas, then I do think we have to take a look at what does that look like. Yes, we can add some discretionary policies for the district, but we do want to be mindful of how open you leave it, just to make sure there's enough flexibility, but not so much that we proceed and we don't get the services in over time. So just some things to consider.
And just to be, oh, go ahead, Gary.
I just wanted to sort of top that off and just for council is, yeah, be mindful that if you're looking at an area that's referred to as an urban area, it's the most dense area you're going to find in the community. We're looking 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. So if you were to allow, say, septic for an exception, you potentially are jamming up the potential for that particular parcel, whatever size it may be, from developing in the future for more urban densities, which is what it's already set up for. A case in point is when I used to work in Alberta, I worked in a rural municipality around the city of Calgary. The rural municipality would allow for a whole bunch of 2-acre subdivision lots in and around the boundaries of the city. But when the city grew and expanded its boundaries, those 160-acre chunks of land that had 2 acres were untouchable. It made no sense to go in and remove 60 homes on 2-acre lots to accommodate urban density. So they had to work around it. So that leapfrogging creates a bit of an issue. So when you're right in the middle of the core, you try not to do that. And hence why that bylaw is in place to say full service in the core in the service area 1 is to prevent any potential exceptions moving forward. I mean, we're looking long-term to try to protect the interests of the core and densify the areas where there already is infrastructure or infrastructure nearby.
Thank you. Just on that, so in the case that the developer wants to challenge that, it goes to an OCP amendment. Is that the process for that?
That's correct. Currently, if it were to go through as proposed, and there was a large tract of urban residential land, and a developer wanted to develop and rezone, so they came in, they asked for rezoning to allow an urban style use, but they wanted different conditions. Say they didn't meet parcel areas, or they wanted these servicing. Typically, you would run it through an OCP amendment. Now, if that wants to be opened up to have that flexibility written in, it could be done. Again, I would just say we'd want to be cautious. The zoning itself is going to set your specific uses and your exact parcel areas. So that will come next in the zoning bylaw. Just trying to think of a theoretic example where a person would have to come in and amend. But potentially, say if somebody wanted to come in with a very large, oversized land use with sort of broad servicing that didn't comply with urban style servicing and land use potentially, or a very dense development, a number of townhouses where they're serviced on septic, it could be looked at. But yeah, potentially you would need to amend the OCP. Again, it's a living document, though. It's not to say that you can't amend your OCP. You can always make adjustments, of course, once it's adopted. It's for council to decide.
Thank you. And that was going to be my next point. This is a living document, that it does have the opportunity to be amended at any request, basically through an OCP amendment process. Mr. Prime, do you have a comment on that?
And where it comes to the subdivision and servicing standard bylaw, they would apply for a development variance permit in that regards if they were trying to vary what they're being asked for in the subdivision and servicing standard bylaw.
So it's a development
variance permit.
As well as an OCP amendment?
It could likely be both at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sim, back to you.
Thank you very much. I think you've again provided some really good examples. And I think because it's a living document is how do we prepare for something with our realities today in hopes of 50 years. But I mean, I look at the land that's right behind the high school and then goes all the way down almost to, where the hospital is. That's a lot of vacant land at the moment. And is this document, does it reflect a will of the district to want to do something with those lands? Or are we really hardened to having this densification for services that we don't have and may not see for a while? Like where's the happy medium, or is there a language to speak. I mean, I personally, and I don't want to speak for the community, would like to see this community grow because I see some of the coming demands and needing to spread out the taxpayer base. But if we can't grow because we can't increase because we don't have the development, it's a terrible spiral.
Sorry, is that a question, or did you
I
want me
do
to
that
speak
a
to
lot. I
Councillor
get
Kim?
that so often. I want to know is if there is a way
Yeah.
that this OCP, and if council is amiable, that we have language that says we do want to see development recognizing our infrastructure challenges.
Your current constraints. I hear what you're saying. I
Like,
would
it's-
say, if there's oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I
Sorry
want to
about
hear
that.
what you're saying.
I would say that if there's specific areas where you see, so say for example, we're looking at the Park Drive example, and if council is looking at the map, maybe you can see my cursor on your screens if I move it, but I'll just try to circle, having some quirky computer issues today, so bear with me. These areas here that are designated for urban residential. If the feeling at the council table is, hey guys, that's way too much land, we don't want to have that much land, that high a density, we can take this exercise back and we can scale some of those lands back to, say, a suburban residential designation that gives more flexibility for residential development if we feel that that's where the needs are more so. There's nothing saying that can't be done, or if that's the appetite of council to have more discretionary policies, we can review that as well. It's just as Gary was pointing out, and as I was pointing out, that we're just mindful that by doing that we kind of don't create a situation where it becomes increasingly challenged to service those areas in the future, if that is the intent, which we understand it to be.
I don't know how much more
Sorry, that was a
challenge we
roundabout
could get.
I mean, in fairness to to Clearwater as a map, if I can say that, there are a considerable number of vacant lots already in Clearwater that have not been developed that are, I would say, country residential and urban residential. There's 3 on my street alone. So, I mean, we are focused on this, but at the official community plan is looking at housing gross numbers that are, 1.52% per year. They're not particularly high. And we're talking for 5-year growth, I think we're under 40 houses or something in this plan. This will all change if the grand project that was on the horizon, which may not happen now, happens. At that point, there's always the ability to amend the official community plan. That is a living document. That's how it happens. So we're preemptively doing something in belief of density which may not exist.
Well, I like the idea of exploring a caveat.
And if I may jump in through the mayor, is if you recall in the current OCP, there was only a smattering of parcels that were designated for urban residential, and they were primarily along Park Drive. What you see in the plan before you has considerably more areas that are identified as urban residential, and that is to help alleviate the problem where if you have a couple of developers who just don't want to proceed for whatever reason, the district doesn't sort of held at ransom, for lack of better words. There's more additional lands up north of the highway, that provides opportunities. Well, if somebody else is willing to go ahead, or they see the market for it, and they're willing to pay for the infrastructure to get it there, which most developers typically would do, then they get to go next if they want to. So whoever's maybe not interested in going, great, but then there's other opportunities. Whereas in the previous or the current OCP, the urban residential parcels were 3 or 4. So if anything, this new OCP opens the door for more opportunity for development in various areas in the core, that level 1 area. So I think this is a better way to proceed with it, if I may. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further thoughts or questions? Okay. Noting that this is 1 and 2 reading, and then it will go back for public hearing and more public consultation, and changes can be made at those times. But we can continue to tinker this, or we can start moving it through the process to the next public hearing.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great plan. I guess that this was just an opportunity to look at some of the changes that had been made, see what's realistic. Again, we did just get some news about a grant, being denied at today's meeting, and just not holding ourselves to too high a standard given our new challenges, and just asking what the caveat option might be. But I think hearing from the public would be really good on that. When would the proposed public hearing be?
Councillor Sim through the mayor. This would be on March 31st as well, so we would line up both public hearings for that meeting.
Should we maybe do a month?
That's 3. Well, remember, we're on a 3-week meeting schedule now. We're not on a 2-week meeting schedule anymore.
And this meeting, it was moved back a week because of spring break, I believe.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's
March 31st is the next meeting.
Basically,
and that's when we would be holding the
If it was February, it'd be a month.
And the only reason being is because I think it falls smack dab in kind of that spring break just before Easter. If I would propose April, but
and we do have a provincial deadline for this.
oh, that's
OCB.
information too. When's our provincial deadline?
The end of March.
Yeah. So
I don't see that in here.
that said, I mean, at any particular time that council wants to make themselves available, we can schedule extra meetings. So, I mean, right now it's set for March 31st for 1 and 2 in public hearing. At that point, we go to the next level. On that note,
And for
go ahead,
clarity, the schedule would be it can public hearing as well as third reading as well as OCPs and zoning bylaws are the one document where you can adopt it at the same meeting as third. So it would be public hearing, third reading, and a potentially adoption if council sees fit.
but that's only if council sees that. Okay. And I think we're going to get a lot of public feedback on that, so
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. Councillor Frizzle.
If the deadline is the end of March, would we not have to adopt it that day? Excuse me.
And perhaps Gary will be able to speak to this, but I believe that was part of our grant conditions, whether that was done by the 31st for the money on this. However, I'm assuming we wouldn't.
I think if we're actually in process of moving this forward, I don't think anybody's going to grant.
Not
That's
since
correct.
they
Just through the
declined
mayor.
us of a grant.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what we've experienced from the province is if you're making progress, they're giving you some flexibility. So that is there. But a 1 month notice, if you will, for a public hearing is pretty substantial. I mean, 2 weeks is typically the requirement. So to provide a month, almost a month, is pretty substantial. Should be more than adequate, I would think.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we do have 2 recommendations. What is the will of council? So the first one is that the District of Clearwater Official Community Plan bylaw number 331/2026 be introduced and read for a first and second time.
I'll second that.
Okay, I didn't move. Nobody moved it, so you're gonna move. Oh, sorry, I didn't even hear that. Okay, now, so moved and seconded. Now I have to figure out where the heck I did with my actual bylaw to read. Thank you. That's okay. Thanks. I don't actually need it all. But there's a lot of whereases on this one. So if no further discussion, District of Clearwater, all those in favor? Backwards. All right. District of Clearwater bylaw number. You know, when we have these conversations that get really cycled sometimes, you know, even after doing this for, 7 years. District of Clearwater bylaw number 331/2026, a bylaw to adopt the official community plan for the District of Clearwater, whereas pursuant to section 472 of the Local Government Act, a local government may by bylaw adopt an official community plan, and whereas council has prepared a new official community plan covering the entirety of the area within the District of Clearwater municipal boundaries, and whereas pursuant to section 475 of the Local Government Act, council has considered providing opportunities for consultation where consultation shall be early and ongoing, and provided the consultation opportunities it considers appropriate, and whereas council has consulted with the Board of Education of School District 73 and has sought its input as to the matter set out in section 4762 of the Local Government Act. And whereas pursuant to section 477 of the Local Government Act, and after first reading of the bylaw to adopt the official community plan, Council has in sequence A, considered the proposed official community plan in conjunction with the district's financial plan and infrastructure master plan and the Thompson-Nicola Regional District's regional solid waste management plan. B, referred the plan to the Agricultural Land Commission for comment, and C, has held a public hearing on the proposed plan in accordance with Part 14, Division 3 of the Local Government Act, and now therefore the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembled and hereby enacts the following. Next page. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater Official Community Plan Bylaw number 331-2026. All those in favor? And that passes. The second recommendation is to this bylaw be taken, or this official community plan be taken to a public hearing in conjunction with a regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Sim. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you to everybody for the work on this up to this point. There has been a lot gone into this. I realize that we have definitely, I'm going to say, stretched the idea of a refresh on this one. That takes us to unfinished business. You know, we're only in the first half of the agenda. You realize that, right? There's nothing under unfinished business, nothing under public or statutory hearings. I'll move on to the mayor's report. Busy few weeks. I have spent a lot of time in the office dealing with both business of the District of Clearwater, but also citizen concerns and complaints. One concern that I'd like to highlight has come up, and I've heard this over the years, but the possibility of councillor supporting or recommending through future action governance training for our local service clubs and sporting clubs, and possibly or potentially require it or strongly at least suggest that it happen for as a training for these boards, for these service clubs if they operate as a board, for anyone renting or using our facilities. And we'll leave that with the staff. I'm not making a recommendation on that, but I have discussed that with the CAO previously, but it has come back to the forefront. Also had several inquiries about the OCP, which I have forwarded on to staff to be forwarded on to our consultants. For staff has verified or vetted some of those and found some of them not to be accurate. But the ones that are have been forwarded on for correction to the consultants. Last night I had a conversation, I mentioned this in the previous meeting because it was on topic, with our MLA on several issues. The first one was Fire Smart funding and the lack of BC Wildfire Service initial attack crews stationed in Clearwater. He had made the commitment to work on both of those as he was sitting in on the forest budget for the province of BC. We also did discuss the lack of highway patrol officers actually being stationed in Clearwater, which is affecting our community because, as we heard the last meeting from Sergeant Simpson, that general duty officers were doing a lot of response to highway patrol files. So he is also willing to take that one forward at the provincial level, but I will be reaching out to one of the regional superintendents of RCMP that I met last year in Barrier to find out a status on where our returned RCMP, BC Highway Patrol officers are in the hiring process, and what the push is on that. On February 12th, I attended the TNRD regular board meeting, followed by the TNRD Committee of the Whole on the 13th. In the afternoon of the 13th, myself, Councillor Bratton, CAO Johnson, and Corporate Officer Prime, I met with Cookpee George Lampro, members of the SIMP Council and their management team to discuss a variety of issues. Top of the list were activities related to the repairs, the emergency repairs that need to happen on the, urgent, they're not truly emergency repairs, but urgent repairs that need to happen on the Clearwater Bridge abutments out here. But we also talked about a lot of other things, including future ideas for the Raft River area, for the viewing platform, and potential bridge ideas, which was quite interesting. They definitely have some ideas there that I hope that will be brought to council at a future meeting. We talked about the state of DRIPR legislation and the challenges from their opinion on that. Also the Minerals Act, also Cowichan Tribe's decision. Also several topics related to the mine, but for confidentiality, I won't get really into that. And also FireSmart. They were very interested in FireSmart proposals and activities around our community and how they could be involved in that. And I think that follows a couple lenses, concern, but also that they also have companies that do some of that work. It was a very productive meeting. I was, by the end of that, I was actually very well informed. I think we learned a lot at that one, but also it did set the tone for future meetings that we hope to have every 3 months or so. And I think it was very cooperative. I think it was very positive that way. On Wednesday the 18th, I attended the BC is Burning documentary and the Q&A session afterwards, which I got to moderate. Absolutely want to thank Mr. Breckenridge, the volunteer firefighter team, and everybody else that helped setting that up. It was well done. I don't think we had a single hitch with audio or video or anything along those lines with that one. And I also like to thank Mr. Breckenridge for getting the documentary filmmaker to attend as part of that Q&A and to answer questions on his film. And also the ADM of Ministry of Forests attended, and that was a bit of a surprise, but he was part of the Q&A session for good or bad, according to some members of the public. Very full house. I think we had well over 80 people there. I believe Fire Chief Smith was doing the counter. So the numbers were good, and it's got some conversation going around town because to be frank, the film is a bit controversial. There are some people that agree with it. There are some people think that it is a very lens on it, whether it be it's not right or left when you're talking about things like this, but there is a lens on it that skews one way. So I fully expect that it's going to get conversation going around town, and I know that Mr. Breckenridge is talking about some serious citizen engagement, including potentially a citizen roundtable on FireSmart and fire mitigation and forestry issues within the boundaries of the District of Clearwater. On Thursday the 19th, I attended the Taseko Coffee and Conversation session here at the DLCC. A few citizens were there, and there was definitely some very interesting technical conversations going on with the citizens that really knew what they were talking about. But yes, they had free cookies, so it was definitely worth popping in. On the 20th, I attended an online Zoom on the National Climate Caucus related to sustainable buildings. There's an upcoming session on heat pumps, considering my furnace went out last week. I think I'm going to find that very interesting. And then another one on the general state and future democracy in Canada. On February 23rd, myself, the CEO, and the corporate officer had a meeting with the Liquor Licensing Authority to discuss general policies as to things related to licensing and how all that works. We did not have any really in-depth specifics about anything around here, but it was good getting an understanding from somebody sort of higher up the food chain with more of a sort of legal and licensing lens on it, how it all works. And I'm sure that the CAO, when he gets back, will be more than willing to discuss that with you on a one-on-one basis. 24th, was agenda setting, and that's it for now. Thank you. Move on to Council Bratton.
So I would like to throw out a very big thank you to our town and a big appreciation with the tragedy that happened in Tumbler Ridge. It was short notice, of course, because tragedy never comes when you know about it, and we all pulled together and we provided a candlelight vigil, and I just have to thank everybody. I don't know, I'm spitting into it and now I'm gone. Oh, here I am. Everybody pulled up in a very short period of time. I do have to say sorry to YCS. I did throw a big email to them. It came back a few days later, returned. I guess I spelt it wrong, but you were definitely invited. I appreciate all the emergency services, and I hope they got as much out of it as I did and help you through the grief of such an awful situation. And thank you very much for Councillor McKenzie for stepping up as Mayor Blackwell wasn't able, he had other commitments, and Councillor Sim for speaking, and Chance, the president of the Firefighting Association, Chance Breckenridge, for also speaking and providing the fire truck. Like I say, everything, we had candles, and everybody just stepped up in a time of mourning. So as sadly as it is, good job to help another community to community. So thank you. Also, on a little lighter note, last night was Raft Mountain Skating Club show, and this was so fantastic. What a great group of volunteers and parents and kids. And did we know that Councillor Sim can sing? They didn't have the track for O Canada, and guess who provided it? So fantastic job, actually. And she also emceed. So it was, and thank you so much to the arena staff, because our sound system worked. So yay, win for us. And I just also would like to, we haven't had a Tourism Wells Gray meeting for a little bit. They haven't been able to get their quorum for a meeting, but we are going to on Friday. So I would like to just update a little bit on what's happening with them. The MRDT renewal application was submitted to Destination BC and is now being reviewed by the Ministry of Finance. It will likely take 5 to 6 months before it gets back. They are attending a outdoor Vancouver adventure show with North Thompson Valley, one of the marketing consortiums, which is direct to public with around 10,000 attendees over the weekend. Get this is super cool. They will have an activation booth set up for Tourism Industry Association conference in Kelowna later this week, which targets tourism industry professionals and travel grade. Their space is fully interactive. It is a mock viewing platform of Hamilton Falls, and it is included with misting sprays and a projection of Hamilton Falls. I just thought that was super cool. I'm easily excited. And they are also in the midst of developing the new Wells Gray and Clearwater Visitor Guide, which is set to be completed by the time the Visitor Center opens on May 1st. They will be doing a mobile enhanced version of their website as well. So it won't just be uploaded PDFs, it'll be interactive. They had seven applicants give submissions for their promo video RFP to promote Clearwater and Wells Gray Park, and we had no applications for using the ground floor space at the visitor center, and are still trying to work out and offset those operational costs. And moving on to the food hub, which I try and attend. The last couple meetings I've had to miss because they've been on council days, but the next one is not, so I'll be able to attend it. But I did ask Joanna to send me minutes of the last meeting, and they have a community freeze dryer that is now available to book. No charge for community food programs, but $25 a load for personal or business use. The soup kettle serving average is 200 bowls a week, fresh and frozen soup in Clearwater and Barrier. Pop-up winter farmers markets at DLCC February 21st and March 21st. And they are starting to accept plot renewals for the community garden. And they will be working on their 2025 annual report and 2026 business case submission for the food hub. CD Saturday is April 4th. And I just wanted to highlight as well that they noticed quite a common comment was at the last meeting, almost all organizations at the table noted there has been a marked increase in volunteers since the new year. I find that amazing, so that's fantastic. And that's, I think, all of their next meeting is March 24th, and I get to attend. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
That information. Yes, the mock Hamilton Falls is way much more. I attended some of those trades. That's way beyond what we were able to do. Councillor Frizzle, go on.
Thank you. I attended the interagency meeting on February 26th, and there was a lot of discussion on how to get volunteers out, which is interesting that you just brought that up. So they're looking at ways of people being able to register as a volunteer and for organizations to put out a request for volunteers. There's going to be a board put out into the foyer at some point, so that will help, I think. But they're working on different ideas. There's lots of discussion on getting a taxi in town, the need for a taxi for safety purposes for, you know, young people that are working the late shifts in different venues and whatnot. So, yeah, so that we had a fellow from Barrier, he came and talked, and their food bank is very much the same as our food bank, overwhelmed with how much more it is needed. And the apartment building is on track to be completed on time or very close to, and they're going to be taking applications next month. So
what is on time? What is the expected occupancy?
in fall, but they're going to be taking applications soon, so they'll have an idea of who's going to go in there. And I also attended on the 25th, the finance meeting with the District of Finance, and I was it was very informative. I got a lot out of it. I wanted to hear about the reserves, and I learned a lot. So thank you very much for that. And that's it.
Thank you. It's interesting you bring up taxi. That also came to my desk as well, and I've done some research on that. There is the ability, my understanding is, though many people have inquired about that, nobody has gone through the complete process to apply for a taxi license. So, you know, and I think part of the feeling with that is that because there is one existing taxi license out there, that would sort of limit their ability to get one in Clearwater. That I don't believe that is true. I've actually reviewed a substantial number of the taxi license requests that have come up in the last year and a half. They're all listed on, I can't remember the name of the board that actually looks after that. It's not the taxi licensing board, it's something else. And there is a substantial number of licenses that have been issued for things along the lines of urgent community need. And there's actually, I believe, a complete category for that. So if there is somebody out there who wishes to do a taxi license, I suggest that they bring an application in and move forward.
From my understanding, there have been several applications put in, but they haven't gone forward with their applications because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and that's
so they have to be prepared to do a lot of research.
That's correct, Mayor Blackwell, and through to Councillor Sim. It's through the Passenger Transportation Safety Board, and we had about 4 interested parties come through. We have kind of showed them each step of the way and sort of which part the municipality kind of has a say in the matter. You know, currently we don't have a taxi service operating in Clearwater with a valid business license. So there's no valid business license for taxi operation in Clearwater currently. And the one that is licensed through the Passenger Transportation Board, you know, that doesn't stop someone else from getting another license within the boundaries, as long as the council sort of supports it through there. If there are any interested parties, I'm still happy to, you know, show any interested parties what the steps are that they need to take. It is certainly more involved than a lot of other processes. It's almost on, you know, par with opening up a liquor license in terms of how many steps there are along the way.
Considering you can basically get an Uber, sign up for your Uber ticket or Lyft or whatever in a major city now with you know, basically an online form. It's kind of crazy that we still have that. But thank you for that detailed information. I was trying to remember the board that you had to do that. So we're throwing that out there. And so I'm back on track. Both Councillor Herring and Councillor McKenzie are unexpectedly away today. They had both intended to attend this meeting. Move on to Councillor Matheson for a report.
Great, thank you. I just want to share or comment too on Councillor Bratton's comment about the vigil, and I share her views on that completely. It was great to see the community come together and just stand and hold place for that evening. I think it was really valuable. Everybody put their differences aside and we all came together as a community, and I thought it was really well done. During our last council meeting is when the event happened in Tumbler Ridge. And I deal with operational stress injuries, PTSD. And it did trigger me very badly about what happened. I trained extensively for these exact situations with the emergency response team as a leader. And it was an event that I would hope I would never see, and yet it took me right back to those days. So I did send out a written column into the newspaper and on my Facebook page. It's my way of dealing with the world in these crazy times. I didn't expect it to go anywhere other than the local area. However, it went viral. And I think it was a message that went out that everybody needed to hear at that point, about having a calm voice, about being grounded and holding place for people in general and not blaming ideologies or anything else. It ended up with over 30,000 shares. It went around the world. I had tens of thousands of comments. And what really blew me away is out of those tens of thousands of comments from all over the world and across Canada, there was almost zero pushback on it. People were very appreciative of the messaging. I ended up on media broadcasts, National News, Edmonton Journal, Tyee, and other publications in print and online over that following few days. So it was very busy and very draining. It took a lot out of me. But I think I got a message out in these troubling times that sometimes we just need to sit still and hold place for people and not put out judgment and not put out hate and division and fuel rumors. Following that event, I'm aware of at least 4 events in schools where they had to have lockdowns because of rampant rumors flying around on social media and things like that. And I just ask people to stop and think about what you're putting on social media and the effects it has on people. Messaging matters, and that is just, it's one more thing in this world we don't need. So that's my statement on that. I just want to thank Victim Services from our community as well, who were tasked with going up to Tumbler Ridge. And Melanie Romeo was up there for, I believe, a week. Yeah. And so I just really want to thank her for stepping out. That's a very, very, very difficult job, and I really appreciate her doing that. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. I sent the text of Councillor Matheson's column to my friend Mayor Richard Stewart of Coquitlam, and he posted it online, and I didn't know he was going to do that. And I think the next day there was something like 2,000 comments and hundreds of shares. It's just astounding how that resonated, and giving it to somebody with a large audience beyond what naturally occurred. It's just astounding. And reading the comments on his that are all positive as well. So thank you for that. Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. A lot has been said, especially for the thank yous for the vigil. Two, just to highlight, is Mayor Blackwell, thanks for suggesting it. You got that going, and Councillor Bratton certainly put things into motion. Councillor McKenzie, who spoke really eloquently, but also to Alcid. You did a lot there, and you pulled together some logistics that made the evening really, really important and significant, and I want to thank you for working extra hours and making that possible. Councillor Bratton and I, we also met with some community members who appreciated Mayor Blackwell's comments about the possible resurgence of looking at some sort of community trails and recreations committee. Some of their suggestions, they really love the trails that are existing here, but they had some wonders that they would just wanted to talk to somebody about naming the trails, putting some prominent markers like half-kilometer trail markers. And I thought those were like really simple things, logical names for trails, and looking at some other existing trails that people are naturally walking already and how that might go. Anyway, the point in sharing is that Mayor Blackwell, your idea about possibly reviving that, I think as we all read through the OCP, there was a lot about trail connectivity, and I know that there was thought about maybe waiting for the next council term, but this is embedded into the OCP. We've had this history, and then hearing these easy ideas, I just wanted to bring that forward. Also, I want to thank Leanne Culp. She did a really great job about organizing the public art and engagement group at Family Day at CSS. The whole committee there, they're so keen and active. Like, everybody had a role to play. We had some great ideas. I had no idea that so many people in this community loved owls. Just hearing what
Great owls?
Owls. Owls. and just sort of the birds, and there was lots of sort of information they wanted to see, First Nations influence, they wanted to see waterfalls, they wanted to see local history. So lots of different ideas about the depiction of mural projects and how passionate people were about it. So I thought that was great. So look forward to one more online consultation to make sure that we've broadened everything out to the community that way. Also on February 24th, I met with what I am now calling a community recruitment and retention group for healthcare workers. And that is basically just trying to do a gathering of people of who could maybe work as ambassadors. And Councillor Frizzle and Mayor Blackwell will remember when we just worked as a community to do some welcome initiatives, some really great ideas. If anybody is interested in joining there and becoming an ambassador, it is just to work to create that awareness and welcome. We need 7 new ED nurses or ER nurses, which is really important to facilitate the new LinkedIn emergency modeling that we've got, as well as just some of the locum engagement. So, for example, Larissa Hadley will be dropping off homemade lasagna to the locum who's arriving tomorrow. So just small gestures, and that's the purpose and intent. So I just wanted to share that's going off. And again, to reiterate what Councillor Bratton said, the skating show just wasn't magnificent from the talent, but the fact that we've got 4 talented coaches within our community who can get those kids who reach complete new heights. Like when you watched young kids being able to put their skate over the leg and having the courage to do that. It is strength, it is using our facility, and it is just watching a tremendous amount of pride in our youth. So I think that was terrific that way. And the only other question that come forward is when we do the do the bridge project, will that be will the bridge still be open? Will it be 1 lane only, or will there be extended closures?
Councillor Sim, through Mayor Blackwell, there will be single lane alternating traffic at certain points during the project, as well as some closures. I think they are working through that traffic plan as they're kind of progressing with this, but there will certainly be closures throughout the project.
And so with that, and with the mind on potential closures, that's a huge amount of backup depending on when those timings are. And does there need to be a lens on what alternate routes might be taken and the conditions of those alternate routes?
Absolutely. It's a big thing we're looking at, especially with the condition of the sort of secondary route over the Forest Service Road, the Brookfield Bridge there, not our Brookfield Bridge, but the other one. That single lane and sort of the condition of the pavement, that is something that has been looked at in some of the meetings even I've been at.
Okay, well, I really appreciate that. And then some of the tourism companies were also interested that if there were going to be closures that saw more traffic that way, how that might impact their launch point for the rafting. So it's nice to know that the whole ecosystem of travel is being looked at.
So our understanding of this is the window would require that the closures and detours would be completed by rafting season.
That's correct. The window is only October 2026 through till
Okay, so it's afterwards, right?
May of 2027, correct.
Okay, yeah, but it's certainly looking at the conditions of those alternate roads.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that.
And discussions with the CAO, the plans for how this is going to be done have changed multiple times as different strategies have evolved. So it is still something that's somewhat in motion. Thank you for the update on recruitment. I have heard that a new hospital manager is inbound, and I have one question for Councillor Sim. How many years of university do I have to get until I get free lasagna?
Oh, join my committee and I'll make sure.
Okay, thank you. That is a very long list of stuff, but go ahead, Mr. Prime.
No, that's apologies. I was just putting my hand up for number 15. I just had one item to pass on from Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I was going to ask that. Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. So just passing this on from CAO Johnson, him and myself met with the Legion regarding their delegation at the last meeting for the request for the crosswalk. Normally we'd have come back with a staff report and sort of discussed what their delegation request and got council's approval. However, we kind of took that back after the last meeting and sort of did some discussion. As it ties to the bridge project, the current Senate application, is kind of right in the area where they're going to be doing some major excavation down to sort of create a road down to the riprap. It's kind of at a high risk location where it may be damaged where it currently is, as well as, you know, the pressures from the ongoing sort of water system. With the new pump house there, it has made the site for, you know, Remembrance Day ceremonies a little restricted, hard to view in some areas. So there was some discussion. We wanted to bring up with the Legion the possibility of moving the cenotaph location. So we did meet with the Legion executive team for that. We had initially suggested a location that up in Warehouser Park that they weren't necessarily keen on, but they did come with an alternative, which would be the along the median between Young Road and Old North Thompson Highway, sort of by the Clearwater Shopping Center, kind of pretty close to where the bus stop is in that median, sort of Young Road's on the left and Old North Thompson, so across from the liquor store or IWE. So there's no technical reasons that wouldn't go forward. So, you know, staff are pretty agreeable to that location. It's kind of closer for them and sort of a march from the Legion. Traffic would be stopped on Young Road during the Remembrance Day ceremony, but continue on, except for one disturbance when the parade's crossing at the highway. Overall, it makes sense. We're going to bring back a report to a future council meeting, sort of on what costing for that might look like, as well as some additional information. The Legion did take it to their sort of general membership, and they did have consensus that moving it would be amicable to them, and they did acknowledge that, you know, it wasn't in the right location and currently. Even if they wanted to keep it in Reginald Small Park, likely the park would be closed for 2026 Remembrance Day ceremony, so there's already sort of some difficulties there. As we mentioned, October is the start of the construction window, so they would be moving on that quickly.
Yeah, just anything else? And
I believe that's everything for that one.
Okay, Councillor Frizzell, go ahead.
Just if they do move, then would they change their crosswalk as well?
Yes, that would be correct. We would
Their location?
likely move the location of the crosswalk to match the cenotaph there, either on North Thompson or on Young Road, depending. Obviously, or Old North Thompson sees more traffic, which may deteriorate it quicker, so there'd be some discussion there on which side would be better.
And my understanding is that the Legion somewhat anticipated this conversation. Would you say
That's
that?
correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bratton.
There was no concern put forth from them about moving it. How? I'm trying to figure out how you would move that without damaging it completely, or would it be resurrected?
Apparently, it is bolted together, so it would actually be possible to move.
There you go.
It was assembled from pieces.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a funny thing. Like I heard some of this conversation as I was driving in to have a fuller conversation with the CEO and Mr. Prime, and in my head the cenotaph is massive, but in reality, when you go stand next to it, it's big, but it's not massive. So it is movable. I think the previous cenotaph, which was a pile of river stones cemented together with a helmet on top of it, probably actually weighed more as one piece than
Exactly.
this one did.
And there's going to be some siting challenges for the new median. We'd likely have to excavate it down to the level of Young Road, kind of create a bit of a plaza there. There might be some additional costs. We're going to look at that kind of holistically in the staff report and come to council with kind of everything that might be required.
Yeah, but it's good in a sense that the Legion was expecting and prepared for this conversation, because we have had some challenges.
Yes.
You know, keeping a good relationship with the Legion over the last couple of years.
Absolutely, we want to
Some
make
of
sure
the
we're.
services there. So, okay, is that the
Thank you.
end of the report? Thank you. There's nothing under new business staff reports. There is a bylaw, District of Clearwater bylaw number 330, 2026. Note this is the 2025 to 2029 amended 5-year financial plan, and I'm sure Ms. Klassen wants to speak to this, but essentially I'm understanding this is a cleanup of things that have happened last year to take our plan to audit. Is that what I'm getting? Oh, look it, we're gonna get a report. Here we go.
So for the 2025, 2029, so that's last year's financial plan amendment. And essentially the purpose of the report is just to summarize the budget amendments that have gone on during 2025. So we have an amended plan. Oh. Let's try it again. And we'll just quickly go through this. Again, the circles, the red circles, basically represent capital portions. So the first one is Resolution 184 2025. That is for the brine header for the NTSP. There was a repair. It's a special project because we're just repairing it. It was $28,000. The Resolution 182 was for the shelter for the new pieces of equipment for the fire department. That was $14,000. Then Resolution IC 35 was for the purchase of land for $150,000 from surplus. Resolution 114 2025 was for this is for the wayfinding project that we didn't have on the plan, but then they were wondering when are we going to complete it. We needed to complete it by a certain day, so prior to the deadline, and that's for $115,000. And most of that was grant. Then Resolution 104 in May, staff came to council and requested a purchase of a new duty truck, fire duty truck for $70,000. That was capital. For Resolution 104, we had received the grant for the water meters. That's $200,000 right here. And then the last one is a resolution for the OCP project to take it to $148,000 so that's a change of 160. I think we had it in the plan at first at $70,000. So that's $68,000. And those are the resolutions we had for council. And council has already approved the budget amendment. And then this one is when you do a land purchase, you have a lot of professional fees. And we had to, there's legal fees as well as I'm anticipating some fees from perhaps our auditors, because we had to connect with our auditors regarding certain things. And then, so how does it come together as a financial plan bylaw? And this is the financial plans they have to balance. And so this is the expenditure side and all the circles. So the capital side is $484,000. So we added expenditures of $484,000 in capital. The NTSP is, we've added 28,000 of expenditures to the NTSP. We added some expenditures for the wayfinding projects. Those are the ones highlighted in yellow. And then development services, that's the OCP project. So those are the expenditure increases. And then the revenue increases are here. So we had some increases in government grants. Transfers from reserves was $112,000, and transfers from surplus is $195,000. So transfers from reserves includes the truck, the brine header, and the shelter. Transfers from surplus include the wayfinding project, the land, and the legal. And increase in grants were the water meters, the OCP, and the wayfinding project as well. And that's my presentation.
Questions? Any questions? Not seeing any. Okay, there's two resolutions there. Recommendations, sorry. What is the desire of council? Councillor Sam, are you moving one or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving recommendation number 1.
Seconder on that. Councillor Matheson had his hand up first. District of Clearwater, number 2025 to 2029 amended 5-year financial plan, bylaw number 330, 2026. A bylaw to adopt the 2025 to 2029 amended 5-year financial plan. Whereas section 165 of the community charter requires that council adopt a 5-year financial plan. Now therefore, the council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater bylaw number 330, 2026, the 2025 to 2029 amended 5-year financial plan. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. And then the recommendation 2 is for third reading. Moved by Councillor Fizzle, seconded by Councillor Bratton. Thank you. District of Clearwater, 2025 to 2029 amended 5-year financial plan. Bylaw number 330, 2026, a bylaw to adopt the 2025 to 2029 amended 5-year financial plan. Whereas section 165 of the community charter requires that council adopt a 5-year financial plan, and now therefore the council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater bylaw number 330, 2026, 2025 to 2029 amended 5-year financial plan. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. And at this point, I will turn the chair over to Councillor Matheson to deal with item 8.1 under correspondence, and I will step out of the room. There, sorry, 18.1 under correspondence.
Find it first.
As you're looking for it, Ken, I vote we do something for it.
Yeah, everybody has that letter in front. They're asking for a letter of support. And, yep, Councillor Bratton,
Yes. Yes, please.
any other comments or?
Oh, I suggest we write a letter of support.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? And it passes. And let Merlin know we can come, Mayor, come in. Yeah.
It's a letter, not a check.
Thanks. And the second item is 18.2, a letter from MP Frank Caputo. He had sent an email to us asking us to forward any concerns that he may be able to help with in our community. So if we have ideas or thoughts on this, we can compile them and put them in an email to MP Caputo if we so desire.
I would suggest, and I'm sure you've already done this, but again, we could reiterate, but again, our infrastructure needs and and also looking at some sort of a funding formula that addresses communities under 5,000.
Yeah.
Right? Like we hear a lot about these larger growth things, but we've just gone through a process where, you know, how do we grow? How do we do anything? And we've spent the last 10 years applying for major infrastructure grants, using those as an examples. And then just looking to the federal government, because I can't remember the last time we had, and maybe staff can help me, that we had an infrastructure of significant size come to Clearwater.
Yeah.
Do you remember one, like where it would foster growth and address some of these challenges that we're facing?
The last significant infrastructure project that came was sewer expansion, sewer lagoon expansion and that sort of thing. And some of that was paid for through other organizations. Some of that was grant funded.
As well as the water line and upgrade along Old North Thompson, which was also funded by the Trans Mountain.
Yeah.
But that's Trans Mountain.
But also.
But.
Yeah. So.
Well, so does everybody, but they talk about in their news releases. Anyway, it's just highlighting and asking for attention for smaller communities within the North Thompson, or any of his ridings, and being specific about the size and asking for consideration.
Yes. Same message has been passed on to the provincial government. We just do not seem to be getting a lot of wins on infrastructure.
Yep, I agree. So it's just worth continuing to blow in the wind, but at least he can hear our concerns and he has asked for it. And I think, yeah,
and I'll come in and I have to be in the building tomorrow, so I'll have a little write up and pass those notes on to council.
Thank you very much.
To staff. So, Correspondence for information only. Letter from BC Transit Government Relations Officer. We are not getting our expanded service for transit. That's unfortunate. I note that all the directors on the TNRD who would also be affected by that are upset by that as well, and I believe we'll have a brief conversation off the record or a casual conversation at the TNRD. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Basically there was 0 expansions across the province. So not even TransLink, not even Victoria. There's no expansions across the province this budget cycle. Speaking with the community relations last week, they're still going through the process, but we believe we're going to just put forward what we already have through again till next year, sort of as is. Not that we're anticipating the next year's budget's going to look a lot better. However, just to ensure that the province is still aware that that's still a desire of the community. The good news in this letter was at least that BC Transit did commit to a timeline for a transit service review, and that would be December of 2026, and it's sort of into winter of 2027. And they'll come and sort of review the service that we already have, and if any of those hours can be reallocated in a fashion that's going to see better ridership.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any questions on that one? Yeah, go ahead.
So with that, and again, refresh my memory on how it's serviced, but our routes actually spend a great deal of time heading out to Vavenby and back. And what is the Area A's contribution for those runs? Or is it just all come under Clearwater, or is it all one big melting pot?
I mean, the vast majority is funded from BC Transit, but
Yes,
I can't remember what
certainly
the split is.
the vast majority is funded by the province. However, of the portion that's locally funded, there is different arrangements for each service. So for the Clearwater local loop, that's entirely funded just through the district Clearwater taxation. If you're looking for the Valley Connector, that's a TNRD enabling bylaw that funds that. So it's a TNRD service that we operate. That there's a bit of a confusing loop in terms of which percentages are applied across, and then the sort of Vavenby connector loop is funded in a different capacity. So, but a different TNRD enabling bylaw. I don't have the numbers right in front of
That's
me.
okay.
I can pull them up, but different percentages for sort of each of the 3 services, essentially.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, you need a map and a guide to the stars.
So Mayor Blackwell, are you suggesting that you work through with the TNRD on this, or is there any action you think that council needs to do? What's your suggestion?
I will talk to the other directors, the EA directors and the director from Barrier, and see what they want to do. But I think at this point it's probably advocacy. I don't think lobbying directly to BC Transit is going to be it. It's going to be to the provincial government.
So do you think that, do you want to wait until you've gone through your area directors, or do you want to write a letter saying, because it is fairly vital to help people get to treatment centers? Like, what are you thinking?
Let's give it one meeting.
Okay.
I think at this particular point, to your earlier point, understanding how complicated this service is funded, it probably be advised to see how much weight various people want to put to it. So, yeah, let's just wait. I mean, I think we can bring that forward at the next meeting if that's what comes up from those directors. There is a 19.2 City of Kamloops Silga Resolution on Heritage Conservation Act. And any comments on that if you wish, but this is coming up in multiple communities, so just read it and see what you think. We move on to notices of motion. Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm asking the support of council in forwarding a letter. Following the shooting in Tumbler Ridge, I received numerous messages with fear about the climate that the people are living in following that. And the resulting bill that was brought into the legislature caused me some concern, and I believe some other members of council also feel the same way. To me, there's a temptation in politics to reduce everything to process. It was just procedural. It was only a first reading, and it was simply about allowing debate on a member's bill, a private member's bill. And I agree, procedure matters, debate matters, and free expression matters in our democracy. But leadership is not only about the mechanics of democracy, it's also about judgment, especially when the social temperature is rising in our communities, in our province, and across the world with everything that's going on, and in light of the Tumbler Ridge incident. Recently, a private member's bill was introduced seeking to repeal the British Columbia Human Rights Code. While it did not pass, 37 elected representatives voted to advance it at a first reading, including our own MLA Ward Stamer and MLA Peter Millibar. In technical terms, that vote was procedural. To me, leadership is not judged only on technicalities. 37 elected representatives supported moving forward and debating legislation that could possibly dismantle the province's primary legal protection against discrimination. That level of support is not insignificant, and it didn't occur in a vacuum. We are living in a time when transgender, gender diverse individuals, among many others, housing, employment, schools, are reporting a heightened level of anxiety and vulnerability. In that environment, the question is not only can this be debated, it's also should it be elevated to a platform right now. It's likely the bill would have failed at a second reading, I have no doubt of that. But even a failed vote would have elevated the proposal and amplified arguments that many experts and advocates have already challenged as inaccurate and harmful. Legislative debate does not stay in the chamber. It's amplified, it's shared, and it's repeated. Platforms matter, timing matters, and impact matters. I want to be clear, absolutely clear, that I believe many of those who supported the first readings are very sincere in their commitment to human rights. I don't question their intent. But leadership is judged not only by intent, it's judged by the consequences. Voting to advance legislation to a second reading and debate to repeal the Human Rights Code in the current climate sent the wrong message to residents who rely on these protections. This motion is not about silencing debate, it is about discernment, about recognizing that when we elevate proposals affecting fundamental rights, we must be mindful of the signals that we send to our community members, many who do not understand the procedures. As municipal leaders, we cannot control provincial legislation, but we can be clear about our values. Clearwater and the North Thompson Valley must remain a place where dignity is not conditional, where safety is not selective, and where human rights are not treated as foundational. For those reasons, I bring the following motion forward. The Council direct the Mayor to send a letter to MLA Ward Stamer and MLA Peter Millibar, expressing our Council's concern regarding their vote to advance legislation seeking to repeal the British Columbia Human Rights Code to first reading and debate in the legislature. And that the letter reaffirm the District of Clearwater's commitment to the protection of human rights, dignity, and the equal treatment for all residents. And that the letter convey Council's view that advancing legislation proposing the repeal of the Human Rights Code, particularly during a period of heightened concern among vulnerable residents, sends a troubling message to those who rely on those protections. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is a notice of motion. We do not debate or make this motion forward here. It comes to the next council meeting for actual discussion and debate. So thank you for that. We move on to item 21, public question and comment period. Questions, comments from the public? Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Chris Enns, resident of Clearwater. I'd just like to correct some of the statements in Councillor Matheson's statement that he just made with regard to that bill that Tara Armstrong presented in the House, the Legislative Assembly. So that was not in response to Tumbler Ridge, first and foremost. That was in response to the BC Human Rights Tribunal, which is enacted and governed under the BC Human Rights Code, and their decision to fine Barry Newfold, a former school trustee in Chilliwack, $750,000 for stating that there are only two genders. Okay, this is something that is completely separate from the Tumbler Ridge incident, and the only way to completely get rid of the tribunal or even cause the tribunal to be reformed and to protect human rights, in the view of Tara Armstrong, who's given a lot of color on this topic, is to actually repeal the code and rebuild something from the ground up. So I just think that if everybody's going off of Councillor Matheson's testimony in terms of how you're going to go forward with this, then you need to do a little bit more digging because it's a little bit one-sided. Thank you. Also, I don't think, based on looking at the actual, what do you call it, the community charter, that this is within the grounds of municipal purposes, and that this is a soapbox for partisan provincial or federal issues, and that there is a massive conflict, and that you might want to review that before you allow this to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Further questions or comments from the public? Mr. Bazima, if you wish.
I have some things regarding the OCP. I noticed that School District 73 was consulted, but the landowners were not consulted on changes to their properties. In our case, the land on Park Drive. And I hear Mayor and Council speak about the grants, about financing for large projects and in infrastructure. I want to say that when Borough Enterprises several years ago proposed a very large subdivision, it was fully serviced and there was no funding necessary from the District of Clearwater regarding that subdivision. And regarding the policies like the OCP, it contradicts some of the bylaws because, for example, on the service level where Park Drive falls in, there is indeed an exception for if a lot is 150 meters away from the sewer, you don't have to connect to sewer. There is the opportunity to make very large lots. The bylaw says a minimum amount, but not a maximum amount. So even if we would do 10 very large lots, the bylaw allows it. So it's a little bit, of things that people should look into before. And we really would like consultation on if you change the OCP, it affects our properties, and I think we should be consulted.
Thank you for your comments. Any further comments from the public? If not, motion to adjourn, please. Matheson and Frizzle, all those in favor. And we are adjourned. Thank you.